The Duchess Alexandra de Arno, daughter of the Saintess Bianca and the hero Zachary. She is the only one who understands Cyril, the kingdom's crown prince, and also the secret love he has held for many long years. Before going into battle, Alexandra gives Cyril a necklace as a promise to return safely. The tragic news of her death arrives on his 15th birthday, causing Cyril to collapse and be persecuted by royal forces with poisoned wine. But in a parallel development, Alexandra is still alive, finds Cyril barely alive in the forest, and takes him back to save him. When he wakes up, Cyril realizes he is not dead and is confused that Alexandra still thinks he is the crown prince, because news from the palace has been blocked. So how will their journey to reclaim the throne and their love story unfold? Please follow Lisa Manhwa together. In Cyril's recollection of Alexandra, she is the only daughter of the Saintess Bianca and the hero Zachary. The Duchess Alexandra de Arno. To Cyril, Alexandra is the only one who understands him, and also the person he has secretly loved for a long, long time. On a beautiful day, amidst the magnificent pink blossoms, Alexandra stands opposite Cyril. She takes off the necklace she is wearing. Holding the necklace in her hand, Alexandra faces Cyril. She places the necklace in his hand and gently reassures him, "Please do not worry, I will return to your highness safe and sound, at all costs." Under the brilliant sunlight, the necklace in Cyril's hand shines like the hope that Alexandra gives him. Alexandra takes Cyril's hand, her voice soft but full of confidence, "Please keep this necklace until I return." Cyril's hand silently clutches Alexandra's necklace, his lips are slightly pursed, words unspoken. Recalling Alexandra's smiling face, Cyril thinks to himself, "Before the unease in my heart, she smiled, as if comforting a little brother." He cannot help but feel regret. "If only I had known that was the last time I would speak to her, even just once, I would have revealed all the feelings I have kept hidden in my heart for so long." Cyril still remembers clearly the moment he received the tragic news. It was a lonely sunset, the soldier's report rang out like a thunderclap in clear skies, "Your Highness." The leader of the troops, the Duchess Alexandra de Arno, saying this, the soldier choked and could not speak. He silently offers Cyril a piece of fabric from Alexandra's clothes, the fabric soaked in blood instead of words. Seeing the piece of fabric stained with bright red blood, Cyril's hand, which was clutching Alexandra's necklace, immediately trembled. He could never forget the day she died on the battlefield. It was also Cyril's 15th birthday. At that moment, Cyril felt like the sky was falling, the remorse with the idea that the war was not what killed her, but me, causing Cyril endless pain. He covered his face and sobbed. Suddenly, Cyril froze. He heard heavy footsteps approaching. Cyril looked up, a cold, dark cloak swept past. He understood that a cowardly emperor, without allies by his side like him. Losing Alexandra, Cyril lost his only hope, his eyes gradually became empty. From the beginning, in the cold imperial palace, he could not speak his mind even once before the pressure of the powerful royal families. And then, with no other choice, he had to send Alexandra to the battlefield, only for her to sacrifice herself in vain. Without support, Cyril was surrounded by royal forces. Who sent soldiers to capture him? Despite Cyril's struggles and shouts, "Let me go, you bastards, how dare you, do you know what you are doing?" Cyril's shouts had no effect on them. Two soldiers quickly twisted his arms behind his back and pinned him to the cold stone floor. Cyril's crown also fell to the ground. At this moment, someone with authority came forward, casting a contemptuous look down at Cyril. He sneered at him, "You poor child, do you still think you have power here?" Then, he picked up a glass of wine. His rough hand grabbed Cyril's hair, forcing him to look up. He slowly opened his mouth, "Alexandra. Since the Duchess Alexandra de Arno left you, you are just a beast, waiting to be torn apart and devoured." As soon as the words were spoken, he poured the wine swirling in the glass into Cyril's mouth. He tried to struggle, but in vain, the red wine just lingered in his mouth. Cyril felt as if a fire was burning his mouth and throat, quickly churning in his stomach, and he writhed in pain that he had never dared to imagine before. In the terrible pain, Cyril's hand unconsciously clutched Alexandra's necklace. An idea flashed through his mind, "Is this how I will die?" Alexandra's beautiful smile inadvertently appeared in his head. Cyril wondered, was she also this scared, is death this painful? Lying in a pool of blood, next to Cyril at this moment was only the utmost regret. If I had known that death was this painful, I would have protected her safety at all costs. Cyril's eyelids gradually closed, a tear silently fell. He softly called her name one last time before breathing his last, "Alexandra." In a parallel development, in a green forest, a rabbit is looking around blankly. Suddenly, a cold, sharp light flashes in the bushes, alerting the rabbit. Sure enough, a moment later, a sudden whooshing sound is heard, followed by an arrow that grazes the rabbit. Escaping death by a second, the rabbit hurriedly scurries away. Following the rabbit's shadow, a girl steps out from the bushes. It is Alexandra. She sighs regretfully, missed it. Holding the arrow in her hand, Alexandra pokes at the white rabbit fur on the ground, her face showing obvious disappointment. What a pity, its fur is clearly beautiful. The morning sunlight gently shines down, causing Alexandra to squint her eyes for a moment. Her eyes open slightly, and her pupils suddenly contract. Before her is Cyril, he lies motionless on the rocks. Alexandra is momentarily stunned. What is that? She carefully observes Cyril, his eyes are tightly closed, the corners of his mouth are bleeding. Fortunately, he still seems to be barely breathing. At this time, at Alexandra's house, an old man is laboriously carrying a basket of clothes. The old man has a benevolent face, with glasses on his right eye, giving the impression that he is a well-read and knowledgeable elder. Even though the clothes he wears are simple, they cannot hide his dignified demeanor. He looks up at the clear blue sky and smiles slightly. The sun is so warm today, the clothes will dry quickly, you will see. At this moment, Alexandra runs from afar. With a flustered expression, Vincent, help me with something. Seeing Alexandra suddenly appear, Vincent could not help but startle and exclaim, Miss Alexandra, are not you going hunting? Despite being surprised, he did not forget to correct her. And my name is not Vinchad, but Vincent, madam. Alexandra had no mind to listen to Vincent, she turned left and right, muttering continuously, a cart, I need a cart. Then, she turned to Vincent and seriously announced to him, I just found something unbelievable. At this time, in Cyril's hazy consciousness, he saw himself sitting huddled in a dark corner. In his ears, he faintly heard the voice of a clear girl, Your Highness, you are hiding here again. Following the voice, a faint ray of light shone on Cyril's tear-stained face. Before him is Alexandra, she smiles tenderly at him. Seeing her, Cyril turns his head, avoiding her gaze. His voice is full of sadness and shame, I have no face to meet you, just because your father is a hero, just because your mother is a saintess, you are forced to the front lines of the army. Those nobles no longer care what I think, I am just a puppet king, no one will listen to me. With that, in his eyes, he could not hide his resentment. Alexandra listens to him attentively. Then, she suddenly smiles, when I was still a young girl, I always dreamed of becoming a knight. Saying this, Alexandra stands up, turns to look into the distance, her voice full of ambition, I long to go to the battlefield, to make a name for myself with glorious achievements. Like my father, Zachary de Arnaud. I wanted to protect the people I loved in the name of a saintess, like my mother, Bianca de Arnaud. Cyril silently listens to her express her thoughts, his eyebrows slightly furrowed, his eyes filled with sadness. Suddenly, Alexandra turns to face Cyril, her face radiant, each word spoken carrying longing, although reality is slightly different from what I imagined, but like my parents. I am now leading the army. And protecting the people I love. Alexandra smiles brightly, you tell me, have not I achieved my dream? As if suddenly remembering something important, Alexandra reaches out to take off the necklace on her neck, let me give you this. The necklace is ivory white, with a jet black pearl in the center. Cyril looks at the necklace, his lips move, this is. Understanding the doubt in his heart, Alexander kindly explains, I told you before, did not I, this necklace always finds its way back to me. As she speaks, she hands the necklace to him, also giving him faith and hope. Alexander gently takes Cyril's hand and kindly comforts him, I will cast a spell on it to ensure that I will return to your side. She promises him, I will return safely, and I swear that I will always be your voice, your sword. Alexander's emerald green eyes and promise at that moment were completely engraved in Cyril's mind. Engraving her promise, in his darkest hour, Cyril always held on to her necklace and kept calling out, come back, Alexandra. He saw Alexandra's figure getting further and further away, he frantically reached out, trying to hold on to her, she promised to return to me. The tears of the emperor blurred Cyril's eyes, holding the necklace in his hand, he kept begging Alexandra's figure, come back. Come back here, Alexandra, his hand clenches tightly. At this time Alexandra is standing next to Cyril, she stares at him in shock. So in his dream, he had inadvertently grabbed her hand, his hand was now soaked in sweat. Cyril finally wakes up, he lies on the bed, blankly looking at Alexandra. Seeming not to believe his eyes, he stares at Alexandra without blinking, tears involuntarily streaming down his cheeks. His consciousness also calls out her name at the same time, Alexandra. Suddenly, Cyril sits up. He immediately wants to call out her name, but the words about to come out of his mouth cause his throat to throb with pain. Cyril instinctively covers his mouth with his hand. His eyebrows furrowed. The pain causes Cyril to curl up like a shrimp. He coughs repeatedly. Alexandra stands next to him, gently patting his back while softly advising, "Do not force yourself to speak. Your throat is already torn." Cyril listens to her, and the pain in his throat finally subsides. In his head, he imagines the moment that he thought was his last. "I clearly remember hearing that Alexandra had died and that I had drunk poison." The images in his memory intertwined and overlapped in his mind. Indeed, the feeling of the hot wine being poured on his face and then spilling down his throat, causing him to writhe in pain, is still clear. Remembering this, Cyril became even more certain. "That is right, I must have died." His hand unconsciously clutched the blanket. Cyril suddenly remembered a story that had been told. That when a person dies, they will meet God, and that God will appear in the face of the person they feel the most guilty towards. So when Alexandra appeared before his eyes, he thought it was not her, but God. While Cyril was still confused, he heard Alexandra's voice in his ear, "Can you write?" He looks at her and nods slightly. Alexandra immediately hands him a piece of paper. Then, she pulls up a chair and sits down opposite him, her voice clear and distinct. "Then answer my question here, your name." Hearing Alexander's question, he immediately writes his name on the piece of paper, Cyril. Seeing his name is Cyril, Alexandra nods, "Same name as the Crown Prince." Her words cause Cyril to be puzzled. He wonders, "The Crown Prince, it has been a year since I inherited the throne." Before he is finished being confused, Alexandra introduces herself, "I am Alexandra de Arno, daughter of Duke Zachary de Arno." Hearing this, the pupils in Cyril's eyes contract. Not the Duchess, she says she is the daughter of Duke Zachary de Arno. Only then does Cyril see that everything is starting to become strange. The god standing before him is in the young form of Alexandra, a form he has never seen before. Returning to the present time, after introducing herself, Alexandra suddenly takes out the silver necklace that she once gave him. She questions Cyril, "Where did you get this necklace? Why do you have it?" Seeing that familiar necklace, sweat suddenly breaks out on Cyril's forehead. Alexandra's promise in the rose garden at that time still echoes in his ears, "I will cast a spell on it to ensure that I will return to your side." Now meeting her again, he silently calls her name, Alexandra. At that moment, he realizes, "I am not dead, I have returned to her childhood." His heart at that moment seemed to skip a beat. Between the two of them at this moment is only silence. Just a few hours ago, when Alexandra carried Cyril home from the forest, Vincent's eyes widened and he exclaimed, "Oh my goodness." He recalled Alexandra's childhood. When his young master was little, she would often bring home shiny fruits just because they looked beautiful, and then gradually she would bring back frogs or moles, and keep saying that they were so cute. But at that time, I wondered what kind of person his young master would become in the future. Looking at Cyril, who was unconscious before his eyes, the emotion in Vincent suddenly surged. He exclaimed, "Could it be that all of that was so that one day his young master would bring back a lovely young man like this?" Alexandra wiped the sweat from her face and said to Vincent, "He is still breathing, so I brought him to your house because it is closer than Arno Castle." Saying this, she thought to herself, "This is the first time I have had to deal with something like this." Vincent saw her awkwardly supporting Cyril and told her, "First, we should bring him inside the house." At this moment, the silver necklace that Cyril had always been clutching in his hand suddenly fell from his hand. Fortunately, Vincent accidentally saw it. He picked up the silver necklace and called out to Alexandra, "Miss, something fell from his hand." As soon as she saw the silver necklace, Alexandra could not help but be surprised. "Really?" She picked up the silver necklace. Looking at the silver necklace in Alexandra's hand, Vincent felt that this necklace looked very familiar. Is not this exactly the same as his young master's necklace? That is why, as soon as Cyril woke up, Alexandra asked him, "Where did you get this necklace? Why do you have it?" Facing Alexandra's questioning, Cyril did not know how to answer. He pursed his lips, sweat pouring out like a shower. Alexandra, on the contrary, was not in a hurry. She carefully observed the necklace and assessed, "This necklace, it looks exactly like the one I have, although I am not wearing it now." Saying this, she looked up at him, repeating the question, "Where did you get this?" He moved his lips, "You." Cyril really wanted to use his own mouth to answer Alexandra's question. "You are the one who gave it to me, Alexandra. You are the one who said that the necklace would return to you, that you had cast a spell on the necklace so that it would always return to your side." He wanted to tell her, "It is me, Cyril Irian de Servan, it is." But the reality is cruel. Even if he tries to open his mouth, uttering sounds all day, she cannot hear. Basically, Cyril is no different from a mute. Even if he says anything, the words out of his mouth are just the sound of the wind. Pain and helplessness. Cyril thinks that everything is hopeless. He bows his head, his whole body trembling slightly. Tears stream from Cyril's sad eyes. Alexandra, she has returned to his side as promised. But she does not have any memories of him. Cyril suddenly remembers his mother. One gloomy evening, she hugged him. Cyril at that time was still a little boy. He cried and begged his mother, please do not go, do not leave Cyril alone. Cyril's mother gently stroked his head, her voice sad and melancholic. Cyril, I have to return to my homeland on the orders of the king, but do not forget this. You are the sole heir to the throne, personally chosen by the king. There will come a day when you will surely become a king who brings peace to the entire continent. Saying this, Cyril's mother gently wiped away the tears on his cheeks. Cyril could only hug his mother tightly, cherishing the last precious moment he had with her. From then on, he was always alone. Cyril grew up in depression. He always withdrew into himself, living in fear and insecurity. What his mother said when she left Cyril was no different from wishes that would never come true. For this reason, there was no innocent smile on Cyril's face. Instead, there were weary eyes mixed with sadness. That was also Alexandra's impression of him when they first met. At that time, he sat on the throne and asked her, "Who are you?" Different from Cyril's shyness, Alexandra appeared with a confident demeanor and a sincere smile. I am Alexandra of the Arno family, daughter of Duke Zachary. From now on, I will be your partner. Hearing Alexandra's introduction, Cyril's face remained the same, expressionless, with a cold look. After a moment of silence, he stood up and said indifferently, could it be that the Arno family knows nothing about the rumors about me? As he spoke, he walked towards her. Hearing Cyril's question, Alexandra was confused. Yes, well, before she could finish, Cyril coldly interrupted, I do not need partners. He said sternly, after all, an emperor like me can be eliminated at any time. Finishing his words, he turned and left. On a beautiful day, warm sunlight shone on the magnificent palace. However, inside the desolate palace, the icy atmosphere was completely opposite. Cyril sat on the throne, but in his ears were malicious whispers, have you heard the news? Those gossipy royals secretly glanced at Cyril and continued to gossip behind his back. They whispered to each other, there are rumors that Prince Cyril's mother has remarried a noble duke in her homeland, giving up the position of mother of the heir to the throne to marry another. Even though the alliance between us has ended, is not that a blatant insult to Sevdan? If Prince Cyril really ascends the throne, who knows what he will do, using that as an excuse. That is why King Odli should issue a royal decree as soon as possible. And appoint a legitimate heir to the throne. These vile words completely reached Alexandra's ears. Every word spoken made her face colder. Alexandra went to talk to Cyril, Your Highness. However, in response to her was only his frustrated sigh. Cyril asked Alexandra in a sarcastic tone, do you think I am just a useless crown prince for you to easily take advantage of? Not giving her a chance to explain, Cyril directly dismissed, I think I do not need to say anything more. Then, he resolutely took his leave. Alexandra silently watched his back. Nevertheless, Alexandra still came to find Cyril every day. Whenever there was a chance, she wanted to talk to him. For example, she actively went to the roof garden, taking advantage of when Cyril was painting. Alexandra secretly signaled to him, even though Cyril ignored her, she persisted, day after day. Every day, she often went to the palace to meet Cyril. Even though she and he did not talk at all. One day, while Cyril was watering the roses, Alexandra suddenly appeared, startling Cyril. He angrily shouted, you are so scary. Cyril looked up at the branch, where Alexandra was sitting huddled, and shouted loudly, what is wrong with you? If you have something to say to me, then say it. Seeing Cyril's face turning red with anger, Alexandra muttered softly, you said you would not say anything more to me. Cyril impatiently yelled, what are you mumbling? Come down here now, it is very dangerous. As soon as he finished speaking, Alexandra stretched her toes. The moment she flew down made Cyril stunned. Alexandra was as beautiful as a goddess in her jade green dress, her petite figure moving people's hearts. She sincerely expressed to him, I am not doing all of this because you are the crown prince, I just want to be the one who shares your joy when you are happy. And be by your side when you are sad. Each of her words, though soft, touched his heart. She looked into his eyes, her tone sweet, can't you let me be by your side? Hearing this, Cyril's cheeks flushed. He wanted to tell her, I want to be near you. Did she know that those words alone saved me at that time, a person who was always alone? Those were the deep words that Cyril buried in his heart. His childhood was haunted by the fear of living a meaningless life that no one would remember. But it became bright because Alexandra appeared. Painfully, at the present moment, he and she are sitting next to each other. Cyril had to bitterly bite his lip with the thought, but she does not remember who I am. She does not even know who I am. Thinking of this, he raised his hand sadly to wipe away his tears. Seeing Cyril covering his face and crying in pain, Alexandra did not want to force him to ask any more. She had to let him sit alone and then quietly left, secretly looking at him through the crack in the door. Alexandra wondered, Cyril, what made you cry so tragically? Vincent stood next to her. He speculated, perhaps he is not well, so it is more difficult to control his emotions. Then, Vincent turned to ask Alexandra's opinion, what are you going to do? He is too weak to be considered a thief. Besides, did not you give the necklace to him, this time when you went to war? Saying this, Vincent paused slightly, wanting to say something but stopping. Alexandra's face showed a contemplative look. She stroked her chin, that is why I do not know if he stole it from him. None other than the strongest knight of Servin, her father, Zachary de Arnaud. Carrying suspicion towards Cyril, Alexandra discusses with Vincent, we must check, because there cannot be two identical items in the world. What if he is pretending to cry to trick us? She looks down at the necklace in her hand, muttering, if he really stole this necklace from my father. As she says this, Alexandra's hand holding the necklace suddenly tightens. She makes a decision, as the future successor of the Arnaud family, I will definitely clarify your purpose and identity. Alexandra, carrying an icy chill, enters Cyril's room, warning him with a cold look. Night falls, at Vincent's house. Alexandra helps Cyril walk, step by slow step. Arriving at a cramped room, she instructs him, stay in this room until you feel better. Cyril still has not recovered, he breathes wearily. Following Alexandra's instructions, he looks around his new room. For a moment, Cyril feels surprised, a room, does she call this a room and not a storage room? Even the bed is almost the size of the sofa in the living room. Alexandra does not care what Cyril thinks, she calmly helps him sit down on the bed. Bringing her face close to his, her tone slow, right now, you do not have the strength to do anything anyway. As she says this, she suddenly threatens him, listen carefully, if you do anything to harm Vincent when I am not here, I will hunt you down to death. Alexandra's emerald green eyes, which were originally very beautiful, now become so cold that Cyril shudders. Before leaving, she does not forget to turn around and remind him with her eyes. Following Alexandra's back, Cyril feels a pang of regret, did I have that kind of expression when I turned my back on her before? He can only sigh, why does not Alexandra have that necklace at this moment? No wonder I am being suspected. Lost in thought, Cyril suddenly feels a sharp pain that makes him bite his lip. He falls down, while hurrying to cover his mouth. After stabilizing his breathing, he thinks, those memories are so real that I was in so much pain that I thought I was going to die. If Alexandra was still in Arnaud at that time, it must have been about 10 years ago. As he thinks this, he leans back against the head of the bed. He calculates, then I must be about 5 years old now. His eyelids droop, 5 years old. Surely, Cyril at 5 years old is in the lonely imperial palace, sitting and sobbing. Cyril remembers, at that age, I had to sleep alone and was not allowed to be near my mother. In that large and lonely room, perhaps the loneliness does not come from that room, but from the fatigue after a long journey alone. The memory makes Cyril involuntarily shed tears. Remembering Alexandra's image from this afternoon, he feels somewhat comforted. Even though I know she does not know who I am, I still feel a little lighter knowing that she is alive. The flashback continues, her murderous expression from earlier suddenly appears along with the threat, I will hunt you down to death, making him feel hurt, that is a bit harsh. It hurt me a little. Even so, thinking of Alexandra, Cyril's lips slightly curve up. That night, he feels strangely peaceful. The next morning, the sun shines its morning rays on all things. The Arnaud territory is bathed in the peaceful morning sun. On the city walls, the guards take turns patrolling. In the streets, people come and go like a weaving loom. In the Arnaud family's mansion, Lucy, the head maid of the Arnaud family, with a gentle smile, heads towards Alexandra's room. Arriving, Lucy enthusiastically opens the door and greets, good morning, my lady. She pulls open the curtains while excitedly asking, you do not have swordsmanship or horseback riding classes today, right? As she says this, Lucy turns around, smiling brightly towards Alexandra's bed, you promised me, remember, on days without classes, you will wear that dress. Lucy hums as she speaks, do you know how much I look forward to this day every week? I even chose a dress the same color as your lady's eyes. Finishing her words, she brings a jade green dress, extremely beautiful, and exclaims, this is even the latest model for this spring. Unfortunately, Lucy is met with silence. A little worried, she calls out, my lady. Just as the maid replaces Lucy and pulls down the blanket. On the bed at this moment is not Alexandra, but a body pillow. This scene makes Lucy stunned, my lady. At the same time, Alexandra, wearing long pants and boots, is rushing down the hallway. She carries a cheerful expression, a slight smile on her lips. Alexandra is on her way to meet Langdon, the Baron and head butler of the Arnaud family, in the elegant study. Alexandra sits opposite Langdon, on the table, the tea is still steaming. After hearing Alexandra recount Cyril's story, Langdon pauses for a moment, a boy, said to be from Castilla, and now that boy is at Mr. Vincent's house. Langdon asks Alexandra, in a steady voice, "May I ask why you think he is from Castilla?" Alexandra carefully describes her observations of Cyril, that boy, his skin has a gentle tea color. She analyzes her judgment to Langdon, just like Princess Navarra, the late Empress of Castilla. No one on this continent has skin like that. Only people from the country of Castilla have it. He does not look very healthy, so I did not have time to interrogate him in detail, but his clothes and jewelry all look very expensive. Mr. Vincent even thinks he comes from a wealthy family. At this time, Langdon nods slightly. If the former head butler, Mr. Vincent, said so, his argument may be correct. Saying this, Langdon strokes his chin thoughtfully, but there are no nobles or wealthy people from Castilla living near the Arnaud territory. Suddenly, a speculation flashes in his mind. If he was injured to the point of not being able to get up, it is possible that he was kidnapped here. In that case, he may not be from Castilla. Finally, Langdon comes to the conclusion, if the person who stole the necklace is also the one who kidnapped him here, then he is just an innocent victim. Langdon's judgment makes Alexandra secretly think, is that why he cried so bitterly out of despair? She suddenly remembers Cyril's tear-streaked face, remembering the image of him wanting to express it to her but being completely helpless. Alexandra cannot help but sigh, have I thought wrongly about him? Seeing Alexandra blaming herself, Langdon gently comforts her. The Duke is going to battle and the lady is in the capital, so it is reasonable to suspect anyone who enters our territory. Langdon looks at Alexandra before him. She is still a young girl, the responsibility on her shoulders is truly great, this makes him feel sympathetic to her. After all, she is the sole heir to Arnaud. His tone is slow and deep. One day in the future, when you marry and transfer the Duke title to your husband, or even if you become a duchess, never forget that the name Arnaud originates from you. Listening to Langdon's words, Alexandra's face shows obvious surprise. Then she lowers her face, seeming to understand part of the hidden meaning in his words. Alexandra's hands involuntarily interlock, like the thoughts intertwined in her mind. I may be the sole heir carrying the name of Arnaud, but I can never become the Duke. She gradually realizes, the title of Duke, it is not something I inherited through marriage. Isn't it just being taken away from me and given to someone else? Thinking of this, she opens her mouth to suggest to Langdon, can you send a letter to my father? Saying this, her hand gently strokes the black pearl studded on the silver necklace. She looks at Langdon, her tone firm, I need to check again. To see if this is the necklace I gave him. Evening comes, at Vincent's house. At this time, Vincent is standing in the yard. He reaches out to check if the clothes have dried yet. Inside the house, it is quiet. The room where Cyril is resting is right at the staircase. The door leading to his room is ajar, just enough to see Cyril sleeping on the small bed next to the wall. He is curled up in the blanket, looking tired. Cyril's face is pale and haggard, sweat dripping down his cheeks. Suddenly, a person wearing a black robe appears. He comes to his side and whispers in his ear, Cyril Irene de Servin. Are you just going to lie there all day and sleep? The grim voice makes Cyril afraid, his hand trembling. The hand of the person wearing the black robe slowly caresses Cyril's face. The words spoken contain resentment. While you are sleeping, those who killed you and Alexandra are still lurking out there. Remember. The reason you are alive again. As he speaks, he presses his cold face against Cyril's face. The hand caressing his face suddenly tightens, the pupils in Cyril's eyes contract. He feels that his hand is gradually becoming rough, cold like snake skin. He hisses through his teeth, conveying to Cyril each urging word, find it. If you do not want to die again in despair in the future, each word that the man in black speaks binds Cyril's mind like a black snake coiling tightly around him. Cyril screams in terror. His scream startles Vincent, who hurries up the stairs. Pushing open Cyril's room, Vincent exclaims in shock, oh my goodness. Did you fall because you were trying to stand up? Cyril's whole body is now covered in sweat, his face still full of horror. He sits up, breathing heavily. Cyril looks around, hoping to find the figure of that strange man in black. His heart is full of doubt, that voice has disappeared. But I just heard it lingering by my ear. After confirming that there is only him and Vincent in the room, Cyril vaguely wonders, was it just a dream? His stomach suddenly rumbles. Cyril's face flushes instantly. He instinctively hugs his empty stomach that is rumbling loudly. Seeing his embarrassment, Vincent smiles kindly, you must be hungry. You have been sleeping for 2 days. He says kindly to Cyril, your throat and mouth must still feel dry, right? Slowly, I will cool the potato soup for you. Saying this, Vincent turns and steps down to the kitchen. Only Cyril is left in the room. He reaches out to rub his face, where the man in black had just squeezed tightly. His face feels itchy. The cold, beast-like gaze and the words that rang out like a mantra are still vivid in Cyril's mind. An idea suddenly flashes in his mind, what the person who poisoned me said. He said, since the Duchess Alexandra de Arno left you, you are just a beast waiting to be torn apart and devoured. From this sentence, Cyril gradually tears down the veil of a sinister plot. If they sent Alexandra to the battlefield just to kill me, then Alexandra's death and mine are an inevitable part of their plan. And the reason I came back to life, thinking this, he stands up, walking unsteadily down the stairs. Cyril's hand suddenly clenches tightly. He makes a decision, if my death and rebirth are linked. Then I must find the reason why I was reborn in Arno. I must find the clues first. Meanwhile, Alexandra is focused on practicing swords with Robert, her swordsmanship instructor. Robert is constantly instructing Alexandra, focus on Alex, his torso is open. Listening to him, Alexandra leans to the side, just in time to avoid a dangerous move. Robert happily notes, that is right, you blocked it. As she is practicing swords, Thomas and Jeans happen to pass by the training ground. Seeing Alexandra, Jeans shows obvious surprise, Miss Alexandra is here. Thomas standing next to him is also puzzled, she cancelled all her schedules to other territories to train to be a knight. I heard that schedule was to prepare for a marriage. I thought she would completely stop training. Hearing this, Jeans immediately exclaims excitedly, really, does that mean we will see her wear dresses more often, like the time at Halloween last year? Remembering Alexandra's beautiful appearance when she wore the masterpiece dress of the head-maid Lucy, both Jeans and Thomas have to admire. Jeans affirms, it will definitely be very beautiful. Thomas also nods, I heard that she will even wear a dress to the training ground, even though it is a pity it is not armor. While the two of them are still immersed in their thoughts, Jeans suddenly interrupts, hey, Miss Alexandra is also of marriageable age, right, if they speed up the preparations for the wedding. Won't she have to stop all her night classes? Thomas, on the other hand, does not care much. He clicks his tongue, I am just curious who that guy is. I mean, who is lucky enough to marry the lady. While the two of them are still discussing Alexandra's marriage, Cyril on this side is sweating while pushing a cart, helping Vincent. Seeing Cyril approaching, Alexandra secretly watches him. She sees Cyril trembling, walking slowly, his appearance pushing the cart is somewhat awkward. Alexandra calls out to Vincent, Vincent. She looks towards Cyril and whispers in Vincent's ear, that guy, is he better? Vincent frowns, I am Vincent, madam. After correcting her, he carefully assesses Cyril's current condition. He is gradually getting better. He is getting better than just lying in bed all day. He smiles kindly, moreover, he absorbs what I teach very quickly, although not very good, he always completes it with an optimistic attitude. Thanks to him, this old man has less work to do. Hearing Vincent praise Cyril, Alexandra only silently moves her gaze towards Cyril's back. Indeed, Cyril looks weak, but he has clearly tried very hard. She walks over to him and asks, have you regained your memory yet? Facing Alexandra's sparkling emerald green eyes, Cyril is momentarily stunned. He imagines, suppose he tells her the truth, wait a minute, Alexandra, I think I have gone back to the past to save you. However, he quickly dismisses that far-fetched thought, there is no way she would believe me if I said that kind of tone does not sound right either. Even so, he can't stop himself from secretly dreaming that she will take his hand and gently murmur, really, thank you, that vision makes Cyril's face flush instantly. He thinks to himself, anyway, I have not heard that sound yet. Finally, he tells himself, it is better to say that I do not remember anything. Acting is feeling. He faces Alexandra, shaking his head vigorously. Seeing this, Alexandra can only nod, I understand. Looking at her reaction, Cyril has also partly guessed. When he did not reveal the origin of the necklace, Alexandra suspected him, but then, she seemed to have changed her mind. Thinking that the real thief of the necklace was the one who hurt and abandoned me. While he is lost in thought, Alexandra suddenly speaks, I did not realize it when you were lying there, you are much taller than I thought. Alexandra looks up at Cyril, her eyes showing admiration, that is great, they say that boys will continue to grow even more after 20 years old. Cyril lowers his eyelids, he silently gazes at the 10-year-old Alexandra. Then, his eyes close, and memories flood back one after another. She will also continue to grow until she is 20 years old, Alexandra. I remember she smiled brightly and said that she was happy to be like her father in that regard. At that time, I always wondered if I could catch up with Alexandra's height. If my eyes were at the same level as hers. What kind of look would she give me? Would she look at me with different eyes at that time? I had imagined it. Now that it has become a reality, his and her vision meet. Cyril suddenly feels his cheeks burning hot. He quickly turns his head away, not daring to look for long into those blue eyes like autumn lakes. At this moment, Robert's call comes. Alexandra, where are you? Alexandra hears Robert call her name and quickly responds, I am here, Mr. Robert, I am coming. Finishing her words, she turns to wave goodbye to Cyril. I will come find you later, take care. Alexandra leaves, Cyril still watches her go. Her back gradually disappears. On the way back to Vincent's house, Cyril is constantly thinking, is not Alexandra going to become a knight? According to his memory, in the past, Alexandra could not become a knight, but currently, she is still in Arno, training to become a knight. If according to the progress of the previous timeline, I must not be separated from this person. Thinking this, Cyril's gaze stops on the back of the person in front of him. It is Vincent, the former head butler of the Arno family. According to Cyril's understanding, it is no exaggeration to say that Vincent is the spiritual pillar of the Arno family. Based on the development of Cyril's past life, in the near future, Alexandra will give up her dream of becoming a knight that she has always longed for. The beginning of that is Vincent's death. While Cyril is calculating his next step, Alexandra is at the archery range. She is diligently wiping the shield. Seeing this, both Thomas and Jeans cannot bear it. Thomas steps forward and calls out loudly, Miss Alexandra. Jean standing next to him continues, just leave it there, let us do it. In response to the two of them, Alexandra only smiles, it is okay, today is my turn to polish the shield. Every time they face her smile, Thomas and Jeans are extremely embarrassed. Thomas awkwardly opens his mouth, but miss, you are about to start your etiquette class, you do not necessarily have to do these things. Even so, Alexandra does not stop. She looks at the shield as if looking at a companion, her hand holding the wiping cloth is even more gentle and careful. He is still arguing with Alexandra about polishing the shield when Robert's shout comes from behind, hey, stop right there. Mr. Robert, who is also the current sword training instructor of the Arno family, is standing with his arms crossed, sternly scolding Thomas and Jeans, how many times do I have to remind you that? As long as I am standing on the training ground, she is not Miss Alexandra, but Apprentice Knight Alexandra. Thomas and Jeans, have you finished all the tasks I assigned you, on the battlefield, will you give the reason that you cannot complete the task because you are helping others? As soon as Robert finishes speaking, both Jeans and Thomas panic, constantly saying, we apologize, Mr. Robert. After Thomas and Jeans leave, Alexandra happens to catch Cyril obediently following Vincent. An old man and a young man walking together make Alexandra feel at peace. The corners of her lips slightly curve up, he also came with Vincent today. Robert standing next to Alexandra suddenly asks, is that the boy who was holding her necklace? Alexandra nods, yes, his name is Cyril. Robert observes Cyril. He sees Cyril having difficulty breathing. Robert's eyebrows therefore furrow. His condition seems unstable. Is he okay? Alexandra smiles and replies, Vincent said that his health is gradually improving. Robert looks at Cyril's pale face like a seriously ill person, and the corners of his mouth cannot help but twitch. You call that gradually improving? Robert crosses his arms, his tone not hiding his worry, then it is not good to let him wander around the castle like that, right? I heard that he does not remember anything but his name. Alexandra also agrees with him, that is right. She wipes the shield while saying to Robert, Servan has entered the war phase, led by the Arno army. Alexandra expresses her concern, it is possible that he is a spy planted by the enemy. Her words unintentionally fall into the ears of Thomas and Jeans. Meanwhile, Alexandra continues to recount the whole story to Robert, actually, at night, I secretly leave the castle to go to Vincent's house, without letting head-maid Lucy know. She recalls, every night, she would wear night clothes and secretly return to Vincent's house. Alexandra would carefully step up the stairs, entering Cyril's bedroom. Through the ajar door, she observes Cyril's condition. At first glance, Cyril seems to have fallen asleep. However, Alexandra realizes, even though Cyril is sleeping soundly, in his dream, he hardly gets any peace. His hand clutches the bed sheet, sweat dripping down like a shower. Tears constantly stream down his face. Alexandra recounts the details to Robert, every night, he cries in his sleep because of nightmares. She comments, if those tears are all fake, then that must be a remarkable performance. Finally, she comes to the conclusion, 2 weeks ago, I sent a letter to ask father about the necklace. As soon as he replies, we will know the result. Saying this, Alexandra turns to discuss with Robert, then we can consider treatment for Cyril. After hearing her presentation, Robert laughs, so you have thought it through carefully. He looks at Alexandra with affectionate eyes. Suddenly, Robert reaches out to stroke Alexandra's head. You will definitely become a great knight. He encourages her, there are many people supporting you, so do not give up. Little Miss Alexandra, Robert's words make Alexandra's cheeks flush red. She shyly says, thank you, Robert. At the same time, Cyril is thinking about the events that happened in his past life. Alexandra, Vincent has been by her father's side since the day he left his hometown. When she was just a fetus in her mother's womb, her father was fighting on the battlefield, and Arno Manor was fighting a siege. They say that Vincent took care of her mother during that difficult time. For the Duke and Duchess, they see Vincent as a father, and for her, he is like a grandfather. Alexandra once told Cyril, I was by Vincent's side when he passed away. She told him while throwing a stone into the still river. At that time, Cyril sat next to Alexandra, her soft voice entering his ears. Everyone comforted me that it was just an accident. But I have always blamed myself. Alexandra confides in Cyril, there was a time when I could not ride a horse anymore. Saying this, Alexandra gives a sad smile. I realized that a kid like me at that time could not do anything. Her voice is full of regret. I punished that 10-year-old for not being able to protect the person I loved, that is, giving up the dream I had always longed for. Even though Vincent's accident at that time happened more than 10 years ago, Alexandra has always blamed herself. If only I had been faster, Vincent could have been by my side for longer. She secretly wishes, if only I were stronger. Back to reality, at Vincent's house. Cyril is carefully stepping down the stairs. He comes across Vincent, who is fidgeting and muttering, that is strange, I remember just wearing my glasses. Cyril approaches him, he reaches out and takes off the glasses that are on Vincent's head. Vincent looks at the glasses in Cyril's hand and scratches his head, oh my mind has been wandering lately, always forgetting things. He puts on his glasses while thanking Cyril, thanks to Cyril I do not have to climb to the second floor to find my glasses, I am going out for a bit. Saying this, Vincent waves goodbye to Cyril. He watches Vincent's back. A moment later, Cyril decides to follow Vincent. Hearing footsteps, Vincent turns around. He sees Cyril running after him and chuckles, oh my, are you going to stick to me like glue? With Cyril accompanying him, Vincent feels very happy. Even so, he does not forget to kindly advise him, do not try too hard, this old man likes to have a companion to chat with when walking, but... No matter what Vincent says, Cyril insists on following behind him. He thinks Alexandra said that he died in some accident. But she never told me what the accident was, or when it happened and where. As he is contemplating, Vincent's call pulls him back to the present. Cyril, look there. He reaches out and points into the distance. It seems that the lady has a horseback riding class today. Following the direction of Vincent's finger, Cyril's eyes suddenly light up. Before his eyes, Alexandra is riding on horseback, her demeanor as majestic as any man. Her face is radiant with a sunny smile. Cyril smiles slightly. In those days when she dreamed of becoming a knight, she looked so free. Watching Alexandra's figure makes Cyril feel his heart skip a beat. He stares at her without blinking. Alexandra's happy smile inadvertently reminds Cyril of the incident that will change her life. He is sure that this is the reason he was brought back to Arno 10 years ago. While Cyril is immersed in his thoughts, he is unaware that he has become a thorn in the side of Thomas and Jean's. Both of them are secretly observing him. Then, Jean secretly signals to Thomas with a nod. A few hours later, in the bustling town, people come and go. Vincent is surrounded by people. A woman steps forward to ask for his opinion. My son sold the calf that was used to pay the land use tax, without my knowledge. I can't give birth to another calf, what should I do, sir? Vincent relies on his knowledgeable understanding to gently explain to her, if your son, then he is trying to sell the calf to get money to buy medicine for you. So I believe that the Duke will sympathize with that, you should present everything to Baron Langdon. Another person in the crowd continues to ask, Mr. Vincent, it seems that this year's apple harvest will decline, do you think the Duke will consider that as well? While Vincent is busy answering questions for the people, Cyril sits not far away. He carefully contemplates, why does a retired butler have to ask the people every day like this? At first I could not understand, but gradually I understood a little more when following him like this. People in the territory often come to Vincent for advice on their circumstances. Vincent, literally, is the father of the Arno territory. Cyril finally realizes, even though it is true that everyone in Arno trusts Vincent, they also have faith in their Duke. Because they believe that their master is a fair person. They can ask the person whom the Duke trusts very much, anything they want. This thought makes Cyril feel hurt. If only I had such a loyal bodyguard before. Looking from afar at the crowd surrounding Vincent, Cyril feels the loneliness appearing more clearly. He wonders, can I become a person who can lead the hearts of the people like Duke Arno? Suddenly, a hand suddenly covers Cyril's mouth. It is Jean's. He takes advantage of the fact that Vincent is discussing with the people to kidnap Cyril. Jeans drags Cyril into a secluded corner and violently shoves him to the ground. Jean stands in front of Cyril, questioning sternly, "You are the boy from Castilla whom Miss Alexandra took in, right?" Thomas standing next to him also continues, "I am talking to you, who sent you here?" Thomas shouts, "I am talking to you, who sent you here?" Cyril thinks in confusion, sent here. Jeans pats his head and nitpicks, "Thomas, is that what you call interrogation? Of course, he was sent here by the neighboring country, you idiot." Thomas is embarrassed, "Oh, okay, then. Did the neighboring country send you here to spy on Duke Arno and then go back?" He thinks, "I did not know that, even though I was born and raised in Servan. People still treat me like a foreigner because I have a different skin color than them." Cyril grits his teeth and tells himself, "This is not the time to think like that, I lost Vincent in that crowd. I have to quickly return to his side." He uses his strength to push away the hand that is grabbing his collar, causing Thomas to shout in surprise, "You." Before they can react, Cyril immediately grabs Jean's arm. He screams in pain. Despite Jean's screams, my arm, he still tries to bite down on it tightly. Then, Cyril pushes him away, turns around and tries to run away. He chases after and shouts, "Stop right there." Jeans hugs his aching arm and yells, "Look at you, if you are innocent, why are you running like that?" He is still trying to rush towards the door. Just as Thomas grabs Cyril's shirt and pulls him back, he thinks desperately, "I can't resolve their misunderstandings, now because I can't speak, and my health is not stable. Dealing with them is too time-consuming." He twists Cyril's arm behind his back and pushes him to the ground. Cyril's tears begin to fall uncontrollably. This position reminds him of the past and makes him wonder, just like that time, am I destined to be trampled on once again? He pulls out his sword and scolds, "You bastard, I will cut your Achilles tendon so you can never run again." The blade shines with a cold light, making Cyril very scared. Jeans raises his sword. Just as his sword is about to strike, Robert suddenly appears, using his own sword's body to block the attack. He shouts, "What the hell do you think you are doing?" Pointing a sword at someone who is resisting with bare hands, "Is that the knightly spirit that you learned in Arno?" Robert glances at Thomas and angrily scolds, "It is a shame, right now, you do not look like the Arno bodyguards that I have painstakingly trained. You just look like thugs." These words strike him deeply. Thomas's arm gradually loosens. He says sincerely, "We apologize, Mr. Robert." Then the two immediately leave. Thomas sadly looks back. He catches his eye, who is also looking at him. He reaches out towards Cyril and asks, "Can you stand up?" He puts his hand on Robert's hand. He immediately pulls Cyril up. Robert looks at him worriedly. He pats Cyril on the shoulder and says sincerely, "I apologize for my trainee's rudeness." He watches Robert's back as he leaves. Cyril thinks, "I can't even escape from those two people. A person like me, can I prevent the flow of fate?" Seeing her stroking the horse, he calls out, "Alexandra." Robert approaches. Alexandra asks curiously, "Mr. Robert, what is wrong?" He replies, "I think you should know about this, it is about Cyril." She listens attentively to Robert's account. When it gets dark, everyone returns to Vincent's house. In his bedroom, a small ray of light appears. Through the crack in the door, Alexandra silently looks at the person lying on the bed. He wakes up and is quite surprised to see her. "Miss, why are you here at this hour?" Alexandra softly recounts, "Robert told me about what happened to Cyril. Before that, I said he might be a spy, and some trainees overheard it and attacked him. He is still suspicious because his background is not clear, but no matter if he comes from the neighboring country, he may also be a victim and brought to Arno. She blames herself, because of my careless words, he had to go through such a terrible thing." Cyril lies still, listening to the two people talk. He thinks sadly, "Alexandra, it is not your fault, it is because I could not protect myself. But before I could find a way, everything went in the worst direction." The next day, while Cyril is helping Vincent hang clothes, Alexandra appears. She says firmly, "Vincent is old and can't wander around alone, and I do not want anything to happen to Cyril either, so from now on, I will escort the two of you." While Cyril is surprised, he happily teases, "I have lived long enough to see this day, being protected by the lady herself." He falls into contemplation. I am really worried about what will happen to Vincent, and what if Alexandra also gets caught up in it. Scene changes, Alexandra runs over and calls out, Vincent, are you going out today too? Vincent replies casually, of course. He says while looking for the book that is upside down on the table, let us see. It seems that the dam at the field near the Arno River is having problems. It rained a lot last summer. Let us go check the condition of the levee leading water into the spillway. The three of them walk together on the levee. Water from the river roars over the levee. Vincent uses his toes to step on the wooden planks on the levee and comments, the wooden planks supporting the levee have really weakened. He meticulously records these points. After observing, Cyril feels, I did not realize from afar that the flow is really strong. Suddenly he accidentally slips, causing Cyril's entire body to lean to one side. Fortunately, before he falls, she manages to support him in time and reminds him, be careful, the ground is slippery and the foundation is very weak, the current is also very strong. Vincent, be careful. Before the words are finished, the two of them are stunned to see Vincent falling into the water, the incident that changes her life. He only manages to turn his head back. Both of them are terrified by the sudden incident, coming to Vincent like a flash flood. Cyril breaks free from Alexandra's hand. She calls out worriedly to his back, Cyril. Cyril tiptoes and jumps up. He throws himself straight into the rapids, trying to grab Vincent, who is struggling in the water. Only water is seen splashing everywhere. Alexandra shouts, Cyril. She calls out the names of the two of them anxiously, Vincent, Cyril. His body gradually sinks down. But Cyril's eyes open wide. He feels, as everything before his eyes gradually fades. Strangely, Cyril sees memories that she has never told him. In the past, only Alexandra went with Vincent today. She accidentally slipped. At that time, no one caught Alexandra. When she fell, he turned his head back. Vincent smiles, looking at Alexandra's foolish appearance. But then he also slips. She stares in shock as Vincent falls into the water. He also turns his head back to look at Alexandra like this time. Fear surrounds her. In his head, the image of Alexander standing on the levee wearing black clothes, looking at the rapids, makes him wonder, when she saw Vincent being swept away but could not do anything. Alexandra, what were you thinking at that time? The moment she lost her family right before her eyes, she must have felt very desperate. Cyril finally understands every word she once said to him. Cyril's expression gradually becomes firm. He decides, I will do everything I can to prevent her from giving up. Cyril reaches out and grabs his outstretched arm. He tells himself, I will not let her give up her dream again. Cyril hugs Vincent tightly. He tries to kick the water and swim up. Darkness gradually covers the village. A girl slowly walks on the bridge, singing a lullaby to her sister on her back. Ah-oh, baby sleep well. Ah-oh. In the lullaby, the little girl on her back is still awake. Suddenly the little girl points to one side, causing her sister to be startled and realize, oh, you are still not asleep. The little girl says, that old man. Following the direction her baby's hand is pointing, the sister leans down and looks under the bridge and asks, which old man? But what the sister sees is something real. After looking closely, the girl sees two people. She is panicked, something happened. Then the girl shouts, is anyone there, help us. Someone is trapped near the bridge. At this time, Cyril has fainted. When he wakes up, light has crept into the room. Cyril stares blankly at the ceiling. He raises his arm, which is wrapped tightly in bandages. Cyril intently looks at his injured arm. Alexandra speaks, you tried to hold on to Vincent with that broken arm, until we rescued the two of you from the water. She sits by the bed, worriedly looking at him. Alexandra recounts, Vincent was not injured at all, not even a small scratch. At this time everyone sees him using crutches and immediately comes to ask, Mr. Vincent, are you okay? Vincent happily replies, yes, now I can walk. She comforts Cyril, he can walk now, so do not worry. At this time, he breathes a sigh of relief. Alexandra softly scolds, but you, what were you thinking? Cyril is startled and looks at her. Alexandra tearfully shouts, now you can hardly walk, what were you thinking, recklessly jumping into the river without fear, at that time, should not you be the one who does not remember anything but their name, should not I have been the one who jumped in? He hesitates, wanting to say something. Cyril sits up, wanting to comfort her. Alexandra covers her face and cries, I am sorry for yelling, I should not be angry with you. At that time I did not know what to do, I almost lost both Vincent and you. She covers her face and blames herself, how can such a pathetic person dare to dream of becoming a knight? Seeing Alexander crying, he is very worried. Cyril raises his bandaged arm to wipe away her tears, thinking to himself, I keep forgetting that she always seems calm, that she is a warm person, and how caring she is. Even if Vincent is alive, and I die, Alexandra will think that that boy died trying to save Vincent, and will blame herself for the rest of her life. He tries to use his eyes as if wanting to say to her, I am sorry, I did not mean to hurt you. Cyril's fingers gently wipe away Alexandra's tears. She grabs the necklace on her neck and says, this necklace is made of black pearls from the mountains of Castilla. Sent by my mother herself as a birthday present. I have been wearing it since I was born. Not long before that, I gave it to my father, to pray for his safe return. Alexandra remembers when her father stroked her head. She thought, this necklace always comes back to me. Alexandra takes out a letter. She explains, while you were sleeping, I received a letter from my father. He said that the necklace was never lost or stolen, not even once. As Alexandra speaks, she hands him the letter. She exclaims, it is strange, because it is something I have carried with me my whole life, so I can't possibly mistake its shape or structure. This is not my necklace. Alexandra reaches behind her and takes off the necklace on her neck. The thin chain with the shiny black pearl carries the warmth of her body. Alexandra leans over and puts it on Cyril, then says, I do not know where you come from or who you are, but this necklace is yours, I have no reason to take it. At such close range, he feels his face burning. She sincerely expresses, thank you so much for saving Vincent, I am truly grateful from the bottom of my heart, and can you forgive me for doubting you? Seeing Cyril still unresponsive, Alexandra asks again, can you forgive me for doubting you? Then she silently waits for an answer from him. Cyril caresses the pearl on the necklace and thinks, actually, whether I can forgive her or not is not something I should say. But I guess this will make her feel more at ease, after all, this thing originally belongs to Alexandra. He nods without hesitation. At this time Alexandra feels relieved, thank you. She remembers, he has been bedridden for almost 4 days, he must be very hungry, oh, before eating. I have to take you to take a bath, I will help. Looking at Alexandra's hand reaching out in front of him, Cyril is a little flustered. He thinks, blushing, a bath, is she saying she will help me bathe? Cyril enters the bathroom, warm water has been prepared. She asks from behind, can you take off your clothes yourself, wait for me a bit. He is startled and panicked, what did Alexandra just say? What does she mean, wait for me a bit? Cyril's face is flushed red. He wonders, should I take off my clothes and sit waiting? It is a bit difficult for her to pull me up. Cyril tries to calm himself, do not think about it. As he reminds himself, calm down Cyril, he tries to take off his shirt with one hand. Cyril secretly comforts himself, the maids often bathe you anyway, moreover, I am injured and must move my hands less. There is nothing to be ashamed of. A knock on the door makes him jump. The door opens slightly and a person enters the bathroom. Cyril's face is burning, he does not dare to turn around. He turns around in surprise when he hears Robert's voice, we meet again, I am the swordsmanship instructor, Robert. Cyril's face is blank. He tries to suppress his embarrassment. He asks caringly, what is wrong, are you okay? Cyril blames himself, I just had inappropriate thoughts, thinking about it carefully, it is obvious. If the rumor spreads that the only princess of Arno bathed a man, that scandal would be no joke. Robert gently pats him on the back. He suggests, if you do not feel well, we can bathe at another time. Cyril remembers Alexandra's words, you have been bedridden for almost 4 days. He wonders, could it be that I smell? Cyril immediately turns to him and asks for help, please bathe me. The stream of water is poured down his head. While helping Cyril rub his back, Robert says, you seem very accustomed to being served. Your body also shows that you have gone through many training courses. He pauses for a moment to evaluate. Then Robert continues, thanks to you jumping in to save Mr. Vincent yourself, Our Lady was not injured. He remembers when she grabbed his arm and asked for help. Robert recounts, the moment you jumped into the water, she ran frantically to the castle. If you were not there, the lady would have been injured or even worse, so this is how I want to thank you. Then he instructs, however, even though you have not regained your memory, your family and relatives must be anxiously looking for you. So, do not do anything that is too much for you. If they desperately search for you and then receive a corpse, how devastated would they be? These words touch his heart, causing Cyril's tears to flow suddenly. After his father's death and his mother's return to her hometown, Cyril's only relative is his great-grandmother, Queen Audalie. At the age of 14, Cyril inherited the throne. And was murdered at the age of 15, the lonely Emperor Cyril. Not a single relative mourned his death. A new day comes to the village. A soldier reports, Baron Langdon. We brought them here, the one who found them. The little girl points under the bridge and recounts, the two of them were trapped in the net that was strung under the bridge. They could have sunk to the bottom of the river if it was not for it. Thanks to the net, they were saved. He asks, was the net always here? The little girl replies, no sir, it is only strung up during the flood season. When the river water rises, the sheep are often swept away while drinking water. About 10 years ago, a pilgrim who stayed in the village proposed this. When the sheep are swept away and get caught in the net, the women can quickly bring them up. This is the second time this net has saved someone since it was first installed. Langdon suddenly asks, this has happened before? The little girl honestly replies, yes, that pilgrim saved someone. Then they left the village together. The little girl wonders, they fell into the Arno River upstream and drifted here. Everyone says that their survival is a miracle. Hearing this, he falls into contemplation. Seeing Langdon silent and not saying anything, she asks curiously, Baron, what is wrong? He says thoughtfully, there is a person that the Arno family has been searching for 10 years. We thought he had sunk deep into the bottom of the river. Maybe we will find them after this. At the present time, he still does not know that. Cyril looks at his arm after the bandages are removed. The fact that he saved Vincent has caused secrets that were once deeply buried to gradually surface. He gratefully hugs Cyril and pats him hard on the back. In Vincent's arms, he feels an unspeakable joy. About the truths that should have been revealed long ago, are gradually beginning to become clear. That day, when Alexandra was walking in front of the house. Suddenly Pierre appears and greets, long time no see, Miss Alexandra. She is startled when she sees him. Alexandra asks in surprise, you, how? Pierre does not say a word and pulls out his sword. He points the sword at her and says coldly, you seem to be okay, I hope you are always well. It has been a long time, Miss Alexandra. Pierre smiles at her. Alexandra calls out softly, Pierre. He reaches down to his waist and asks, when you see me, you know what to do, right? You have not forgotten, have you? Finishing his words, Pierre pulls out a small knife. From afar, Cyril comes out of the house and walks to the fence. He is watching his every move. Cyril's eyes suddenly widen with alarm. In the distance, Pierre runs towards Alexandra with the small knife. She is attacked by surprise and has no time to react. He quickly grabs a wooden stick right next to him. Then, Cyril yells and jumps over the fence. Just as the knife is close to Alexandra's neck, she perfectly ducks and avoids the attack. Alexandra quickly grabs his wrist. Then she uses her elbow to strike Pierre hard. He twists his wrist and escapes from Alexandra's hand. Pierre's other hand throws a punch. She steps back with an excited expression. Suddenly, both of them stop fighting and turn to look at the person who is running over. He jumps up and raises the stick high in his hand. Just as he is still in a daze, Cyril smashes the stick down on Pierre's head. Alexandra is completely shocked. He takes a hit and his head is dizzy. His face is now very fierce. In a moment, Pierre falls to the ground. She exclaims in panic, Pierre, and runs towards him. Alexandra reaches out to wipe the blood from Pierre's nose and asks caringly, Pierre, are you okay? I thought you would be injured on your return. Seeing this, Cyril blankly clutches the stick in his hand, not understanding what is happening. He smiles bitterly and reaches out towards him and asks, Miss, who is this brave young man? She introduces him, Cyril, he is a knight of Arno and is my escort. Pierre, this is Cyril. He is a benefactor of Arno. Pierre wipes his mouth and says, oh, is this the boy who jumped into the river to save Mr. Vincent? He smiles bitterly, I must have made a bad impression on you. You rushed straight at me to protect the lady. Pierre reaches out and gently pats him on the head. Then he cheerfully praises Cyril, admirable, a true hero is someone who never flinches when a lady is in danger. We will meet a lot, so let us be friends, stranger. But when he feels that his body can no longer support him, he waves goodbye, I must go see a doctor now. At this time Alexandra approaches and explains, sorry, you must be very surprised, right? Pierre is like an older brother to us. He always puts on that look to teach us how to defend ourselves. That is also how he always greets us, thanks to that, we have improved a lot. Watching Pierre's back, her face shows worry. It is really annoying, I know he is not in the best condition, but I still can't take him down with just one blow. He is participating in the war in Aragon with my father, but I heard that he fell off his horse and broke his bones, so he had to return early. Suddenly Alexandra realizes in panic, now that I think about it, Cyril, your hand. She grabs his hand and asks caringly, is your hand okay? Ah, it is a bit swollen. Alexandra carefully examines Cyril's hand. She says softly, you just had your cast removed. Suddenly he grabs Alexandra's hand. Then, Cyril slowly writes in her palm, I. His expression is sad. Cyril asks, did I overreact by jumping in like that? She comforts, you were just trying to help because you thought I was being attacked. When I was little, I used to go up against Pierre with Gaston. Oh, Gaston is the son of my godmother, he is in another barack, I will introduce him to you later. Alexandra says happily, oh, but just now you looked exactly like Gaston, it was very reassuring, thank you. He intently looks at her happy face. Cyril finally relaxes. He tightly holds Alexandra's hand. Then, Cyril smiles gently. His smile stuns her. Alexandra looks up at Cyril. She reaches out and touches his cheek and exclaims, looking at Cyril. It feels like having another younger brother. Alexandra happily admits while stroking Cyril's golden hair, just now, seeing Pierre pat your head, made me want to touch it too. He is struck by lightning when he hears the words, younger brother. She finally stops and says sincerely, thank you again for what happened just now, Cyril. Well, see you tomorrow. Finishing her words, Alexandra turns and walks towards the castle. Cyril reaches out and adjusts his hair. He does not quite trust his intuition. Like when he saw Mr. Vincent fall into the water, Cyril did not hesitate to jump in after him. Perhaps thanks to that, he saw what happened here in his past life. Now that Mr. Vincent has recovered and can walk, Alexandra will suggest that she continue to be our escort. Cyril falls into contemplation. He touches the necklace on his neck and thinks, she won't be able to train properly if she keeps following me. Alexandra does not have much time. Evening in the barracks. Robert is standing next to his desk when the tent door is lifted. He turns around. Cyril stands seriously in front of the tent door, thinking, if that is the case, there is only one thing that I can do at this time. Her room in the castle is still lit. Lucy is helping Alexandra dry her hair and asks, you do not have training tomorrow, right, miss? You have to wake up very early tomorrow, right from the early morning, the maids and I will help you prepare, so you can't go anywhere, okay? She glances at her and says, I know, Lucy, is it necessary to glare like that? Alexandra says honestly, I am sorry, it is not that I intentionally ran away. Lucy suggests, if you feel guilty, why do not you try to grow your hair long? It is true that short hair is more convenient. Especially when combing like this, but you also have to think about the maids who have to work hard to style your hair. You have to start preparing for tomorrow's engagement ceremony from now. Alexandra, in her past life. She was engaged right after her coming-of-age ceremony, when she was just 15 years old. A few years later, in the winter, her fiancé became Duke Arnaud. He peeked through the door, seeing that he was resting on the bed. Looking at Vincent, who has fallen asleep, Cyril recalls, after Mr. Vincent passed away, she gave up her dream of becoming a knight. That is probably why she hurriedly got engaged and married. He reaches out and puts a blanket on him, telling himself, things are different now. Cyril gently leaves the room. He feels lucky, she has not given up her dream of becoming a knight. So she needs to train more, even if it is just for one day. To convince more people to support her dream, even if it is just one more person. Robert is surprised to see Cyril and asks, Cyril, why are you here at this hour? He looks at the person in front of him and assesses, this person. Cyril can't remember the first time he met him, but on that day, Cyril remembered who that day was. From the angle of his face as he looked down. He remembers, Mr. Robert was the one who, on the day the tragedy happened, told Cyril about Alexandra. He was the one who brought the news of her death. He can confirm, he was also the one who was by her side until she died, and was also the teacher who taught her to become a knight. This man will definitely stand on Alexandra's side. The capital of Servin, La Hoz. In a room inside the palace. Emilio requests, I want a clear promise today. He takes a hot cup of tea. Emilio continues, a promise to hold an engagement ceremony between Miss Alexandra of Arnaud and my son this year. He takes a sip of tea and says sarcastically, it is rumored that the lady has neglected the promised etiquette classes, and she is still obsessed with the game of knights. She certainly does not intend to postpone the engagement indefinitely because of that. As he finishes his words, the expressions of the two people standing behind him darken. Emilio says with a smile, my second son is 16 years old this year. If we had held the wedding with the lady sooner, they would have 2 children by now. Am I right? Bianca, the Duchess of Arnaud, looks at him coldly. She explains, the reason why the engagement has always been postponed is because the enemy country, Aragon, has broken the ceasefire agreement and started a war. You should know this. Earl of Corsica. Bianca says tactfully, I believe that you do not think that a promise between two families is more urgent than a national crisis. My husband, Zachary Darno, has raised the flag of the kingdom and is on the front lines of this war. And we are calling for more allegiance from other noble families. He raises his hand to interrupt her, as you know. Isn't the Duke of Arno family a family that the late king ennobled in a rather unusual way, because of concerns about Her Majesty Audley's position? For a family with such an important political position in Servin, they do not have a very long history. Emilio points at Bianca and analyzes arrogantly, Bianca Darno, even if the Holy See recognizes you as a saint, it won't be easy to ask the Holy See to send a holy knight. Especially whenever war breaks out. And the reaction of the noble families to deploying more troops may not be very positive. Therefore, an alliance with a family with a long history is even more necessary in times like these. Do you agree? He pretends to sympathize. Arno is not the only family worried about our homeland. So, I urge you to cooperate with us as soon as possible, with a family like ours, the Corsica family. Emilio boasts, one of the founders who contributed to Servin with a long history. She sneers, okay. Then, at least the two children should meet before the engagement, right? Bianca stands up and arranges, I will invite the Earl of Corsica and his son to the Arno mansion. Achieving his goal, he smiles in satisfaction. In the flower garden, the Baroness says angrily, Emilio de Corsica. How dare he insult the Arno family like that? At a time like this, when the Duke can't easily speak out, he dares to make a threatening request to the Duchess, standing behind her. Sover is also grinding his teeth in anger. He points to himself and confidently assures, Madam, just give the order, this Sover will deal with them without leaving any traces. She says in satisfaction. You are always the first to suggest such things. I do not know how I would manage without you. But for now, I will accept that kind heart. Bianca focuses on analyzing, the Corsica family is indispensable to Servin, so I do not want to cause any trouble. If we want to get cooperation from the noble families, we must first complete the marriage. To prevent our daughter from inheriting such a life, my wife and I have tried for 15 years. Finally, she turns around and makes a decision, since he said my daughter is still obsessed with playing the game of knights, let him meet her. Let him admire a masterpiece that Bianca and Zachary. A few days later, at the Darno mansion. A letter is placed neatly on the table. Alexander picks it up and opens it. She reads it right in front of Langdon. After reading it, Alexander puts the letter down and recounts, my mother has invited the Earl of Corsica and his son to our mansion. She told me to show all my abilities. She is silent, thinking, abilities, what exactly is the ability that she is referring to? They certainly want to come to meet the daughter of the Darno family, wearing a dress, following the beat, spinning gracefully in an enchanting dance. Or does she mean, the ability to hide her true feelings? He repeats, Miss, you were previously arranged to go with my son, Gaston, to Corsica as part of your knight assistant duties. You remember that the Duchess was the first to propose this knight assistant story. Alexander replies, yes, I remember. You once said that if I live as a knight assistant at my husband's residence, I can easily get acquainted with the young heir of Corsica. The man who will become my husband. She sadly recalls, but then suddenly my parents both opposed that idea. And that was after I said that I would agree. They have always respected my opinions, so I do not understand why they suddenly changed their minds. Langdon replies, I guess. At the same time Aragon started a war. He picks up the letter and continues, right from the time she intended to let you be a knight assistant, the Duchess wanted to show them your abilities. I think that day also felt the same when writing this letter. Wouldn't it be better if you showed them your true self, to prove what kind of person that child is, the daughter of Zachary, the steel spear knight, the hero of the country. And the Saintess Bianca. Alexander ponders Langdon's words, the daughter of Zachary, the steel spear knight, the hero of the country, and the Saintess Bianca, show them who I am, she remembers when she was practicing swords. With a dummy. Zachary approaches and calls, Alex. Alexander turns around in surprise and replies, Father. He smiles and approaches. Then Zachary strokes his daughter's head and praises, you have made a lot of progress, your posture is much better than before. She smiles shyly, not really. I still have a lot to learn. I always admire both father and mother. The two of you have protected this land and the people here, with your strength and your own ways. Therefore, I do not want to entrust the task of protecting Darno, protecting this land, to anyone else. Alexander firmly affirms, I want to show them that I can also protect this land, the land that my parents have always protected, with my own strength and not my husband's. He sighs, but Alex, this father of yours. Has hoped that the road you will take will not end on the battlefield, where blood and fire surround her. Alexandra wakes up with a start and takes a deep breath. Her eyes widen and she clenches the blanket in her hand. Alexandra sits up suddenly, tears streaming down. She raises her hand to her neck. Alexandra wants her necklace, but is shocked to realize. She remembers, wait, the necklace is with my father. But there is no training today. In the early morning tomorrow, Lucy and the maids will rush in here. I should sleep a little more. After comforting herself, Alexandra lies down and closes her eyes. Before falling asleep, Alexandra thinks of Lucy's appearance. Tomorrow, they will definitely come at dawn. The girls helping her get dressed will rush in right away, not in the early morning. Thinking of that image, Alexandra opens her eyes again. She sits up sadly, I can't sleep. On the training ground, an arrow flies quickly and sticks straight into the target. Alexandra looks at the scene in front of her in surprise. She sees Cyril pulling back the bow. He focuses on aiming. Alexandra calls out, Mr. Robert. Why is Cyril at the training ground at this hour? He sights the arrow and replies, he came to me a few days ago, wanting me to teach him swordsmanship and archery. Because he recently broke his arm, swordsmanship would be too much. So I thought practicing archery would be good for his recovery and to let him try it. Seeing his confused look, Robert continues, he said he does not remember anything, but I am sure he has gone through many training courses in his homeland. His concentration ability is very good, and his posture is also very correct. When I helped him bathe, his back and shoulders were very muscular. After speaking, he is shocked to realize that such comments are not appropriate for a lady to hear. She replies, no sir, on the training ground, I am apprentice Alex. Even last night, he must have still had nightmares. Isn't he tired? Robert glances at Alexandra. He smiles. Then Robert explains, what I mean is Cyril, he said he does not want to waste your time. He said he would face the nightmares himself and take care of himself. And you should focus on training to become a knight. Hearing this, she is quite surprised. He stands up and guesses, maybe he felt exhausted in a place that both you and I do not know, but that is the burden he carries, because that is what he chose. We should respect that. Alexandra listens to all of these words and falls into her own thoughts. Looking at the figures of the two people who are diligently training, she thinks, I am sure he is very tired. Mr. Robert is a good teacher, he won't let even the smallest things not be taught carefully. Cyril pulls back the bow. He suddenly looks back at where Alexandra was standing. Seeing this, Robert pats him on the shoulder and says, it is time, stop here for today. Cyril exhales wearily and leaves, his whole body tired. Suddenly he glances and sees two people approaching from afar. Thomas glumly complains, Mr. Pierre will be in charge of the shield training today, that guy, did not he break a bunch of bones after falling off his horse, why does he still look so okay? Jeans replies, do not you know, they are famous for being injured a lot and still recovering quickly. Cyril's face darkens when he remembers, those people are the ones who bullied me last time. What should I do, what if we run into each other? Suddenly a hand grabs his hand. She says softly, this way, Cyril. Follow me. He turns to ask, when are you going to teach that Castilla a lesson? She stops him, Thomas, do you want to hear Robert call you thugs or hooligans again? Thomas shouts angrily, who wants to be scolded, that guy also bit your hand, what kind of honor is left after being embarrassed like this? What, the third son of the Viscount does not like petty fights, Alexandra and Cyril hear all the words of the two people from a corner. The distance is too close, making him embarrassed and his face burning. He wonders, is this the sound of my heart, or is it the sound of Alexandra's heart beating? Cyril thinks, Alexandra is engaged, she probably only sees me as a younger brother. If there is gossip because of me, Alexandra will be in trouble. She suddenly leans down and asks softly, are you okay, Cyril? He looks up at Alexandra. Cyril remembers his past life, when he curled up in a corner, she also looked at him like that. Alexandra's face is gentle and caring. She explains, Jeans and Thomas are not bad people, but once they make a decision, it is hard to change. It is best not to run into them for the time being. Alexandra asks, can you go with me for a while? She leads him into the mansion. Standing in front of a little girl, Alexandra introduces, this is Yvette, my nanny's daughter. Gaston and Yvette are both the children of Baron Langdon, they are very lovely, right? Then she smiles at the little girl, Yvette, this is Cyril that I have told you about. Cyril thinks with some confusion, they are really cute. Why suddenly mention the children of the nanny? Alexandra puts her hand on Yvette's shoulder and says, I have asked Yvette, from now on every morning she will stop by Vincent's house. You often wake up early these days, and stay next to Vincent until late at night. Seeing him startled and alarmed, she smiles brightly and teases, you are making a face like, how did she know about that, right? Alexandra suddenly grabs Cyril's hand. She says sincerely, you have gone through too much since coming to this territory. I do not know why you are so restless. But I hope that you can live a little easier. Alexandra smiles and thinks about something. She happily admits, because of me, thanks to Cyril, my heart has calmed down a lot. 2 red streaks appear on his tanned skin. Cyril looks down at his hand holding Alexandra's hand. Then he says goodbye to her. Cyril looks at the little girl standing next to her. Yvette suddenly says, you hold Sister Alex's hand very naturally. These words make Cyril both startled and embarrassed. He thinks Alexandra reached out her hand first, I just grabbed it unconsciously. Cyril hurriedly turns and leaves, hiding his embarrassment, thinking to himself, this child observes all sorts of things she should not. I have to be more careful from now on. Suddenly he stops. Cyril remembers the mysterious man. At that time I acted because of the uneasy feeling. The voice of the man in the dream, the icy hands, felt so real. I was constantly worried, and rummaging everywhere, to the point of letting Alexandra notice. But then her words, because of Cyril, my heart has calmed down a lot, make him happily think, but anyway, when others acknowledge my efforts, I feel somewhat comforted. Seeing Yvette's twinkling eyes looking at him, Cyril is even more flustered and his face turns red. He pats his cheeks and tells himself, come on, stay calm, I have to go. Cyril's heart is filled with determination, all right, I have to go faster. Alexandra is a knight, she needs to have more influence. He remembers when he was in power, the one who requested to send Alexandra to the front lines was. Cyril looks at Emilio below the throne and asks, you are not kidding, are you? The Earl of Corsica. He angrily jumps up from the throne and questions, you intend to send Alexandra, send the Duchess of Arno to the front lines in this losing war. I know she has been practicing swords since she was a child, but how can you think that a woman can lead an army? He replies cunningly, Your Majesty. You are originally from Castilla, you should know this well. Saint Daniela of the Kingdom of Castilla was originally a young girl who grew up in the countryside, not a knight or a noble. She stood up and followed the call of the divine spirit, ending the nearly 100-year war in the eastern continent. Alexandra is the daughter of Saintess Bianca, the daughter of a national hero, and a saintess. If she stands far away and commands the army, and if a person with the identity of a daughter, without power in her hands, puts on armor and takes command of the 3 armies, then won't everyone fighting in this war see this as the embodiment of Saint Daniela? Emilio says with a treacherous expression, how can I feel at ease sending my daughter-in-law to the battlefield, and how can the gods turn a blind eye to the daughter of the person they have chosen? I will put my faith in the divine spirit, who brought Saint Daniela and Saintess Bianca to us. Cyril feels that even though he did not understand much at that time, he still recognized that that was an absurd sophistry. But everyone around him cheers, truly a founding contributor, truly patriotic, Earl of Corsica, so there was this move. They all say, Your Majesty, this is the will of heaven, Your Majesty, please order the Duchess Alexandra de Arno to go to war. He wonders, if I had resisted that sophistry at that time, would the future have changed? Would we have avoided being killed by him? The mysterious man appears and whispers, while we are asleep. Those who murdered us are still secretly acting. Cyril calculates, no, if it is the Earl of Corsica that I know, he will definitely use every means to kill us at all costs. He treats marriage as a business transaction, predetermines how to use the wife he marries, and then controls her as he pleases, and then throws her away ruthlessly when she is no longer valuable. That is Emilio de Corsica. He plans, what I can do at this time is, help Alexandra become a knight, and further expand the forces supporting her. And if there is an opportunity, I will definitely kill and torture Corsica myself. In Cyril's head, Emilio de Corsica appears as the one who plotted his and Alexandra's death. He loads an arrow into the bow. Cyril aims straight at the target, determined in his heart, if there is a chance, I must personally end him. The arrow leaves the bow and sticks straight into the bullseye. Robert stands behind, watching him practice. Cyril himself feels that the accuracy is increasing, and the things that were previously weaknesses are also gradually improving. He approaches and pats him on the shoulder, reminding him, Cyril, let us stop here for today. Cyril points to the side. Robert looks curiously in the direction he is pointing. He guesses, oh, do you mean why are we finishing even though it is not dawn yet? Robert explains, because dawn will be late today. Arno is the northern region of Servin, so when autumn comes, the sun appears less each day. From now on, the weather will also get colder and colder. One day, the cold will suddenly hit, so prepare warm clothes. As the two leave the training ground, he calls him back. Oh, by the way, Arno will welcome a guest soon, so from tomorrow, the guards will also start training from early morning. The kids who bullied you will also participate in the early morning training, so if you feel uncomfortable, I will lend you a bow. Self-training alone in a comfortable place is not bad either. Cyril wonders, a guest comes to the territory when both the Lord and the Duchess are absent. He returns to Vincent's house in the dawn light. As he walks, Cyril continues to think. Moreover, it is right when the harvest season is about to end, and it is also the time to visit the fields. He sees him return and says, "Welcome back, Cyril." Vincent asks Yvette, "So, Miss Yvette, the Earl of Corsica and his son will come before the Mansiong festival?" The little girl replies, "Yes. The Duchess has sent a letter to the Earl, so the Duchess will welcome them on her behalf." Hearing this news, Cyril is very worried. He clutches the bow and thinks, the opportunity has come sooner than I thought. The Earl of Corsica will come to Arno. On the training ground, many guards are diligently training. The target used for archery is lying silently in a corner. Alexandra comes to the training ground and looks towards the archery area. She reaches out and pushes the hair that is blown by the wind behind her ear. Then Alexandra turns and asks Robert, "There are no targets being shot, did Cyril skip training this morning?" He replies while wiping his sword, "No, Cyril does not come to the training ground these days, but trains on his own, because the guards start coming and going from early morning." She breathes a sigh of relief, so that is it. Robert notices Alexandra's unusual expression. He teases, "I heard that Cyril has not given up on archery, you seem very relieved." She laughs and frankly admits, "Yes. He is honing himself with the desire to become a knight." Alexandra's eyes sparkle and says, "A mysterious young man fell into our territory, we can't talk comfortably, his identity is also unclear. But he always supports me, when I realize that. I feel like Cyril is running parallel to me." Her head is filled with images of the two of them side by side. Alexander thinks, "I just see his side and it tells me to move forward. The necklace he is wearing is not mine. But it is as if it was something I sent with a prayer for my father to be safe on the battlefield, and now it has returned, as if giving me courage." Thinking this, she can't help but smile. Alexander reminds, "The plan to welcome the Earl of Corsica and his son will proceed as planned. I hope you will take charge of training the knights." Robert sighs. He says, "The Earl of Corsica probably won't be happy." She replies, "Even so, since he does not know what kind of person his future daughter-in-law is not this the best way to show my abilities?" Robert smiles in satisfaction. Alexander points to herself and confidently affirms, "I will show my future fiancé and father-in-law what kind of person the daughter of the Arno family is." On a tree-lined road, a carriage with a retinue is slowly moving forward. The black flag with the deer symbol representing the Corsica family flutters in the wind. Inside the carriage, Ion looks out the window boredly. He asks, "We have been in the Arno territory for a while now, but how much further until we reach the castle, father?" Emilio sitting opposite him comforts, "Do not be impatient, look around, Ion, see how fertile the Arno land is. In all of Servan, only Arno owns such a vast agricultural land. I heard that forestry can also be developed here. Sounds very magnificent, right?" Thinking about the future, he laughs and says, "When you marry Alexandra, this will be the land that you will rule later." A guard riding a horse suddenly notices something ahead. He wonders, dust. A cavalry unit rushes forward. She rides past the Corsica carriage. Alexandra asks, "Are you the Earl of Corsica?" She sits on horseback wearing armor, smiling radiantly. Alexandra greets according to etiquette, "It is a pleasure to meet you, I am Alexandra, the Duchess of the Arno family. The Knights of Arno will escort you to the castle." Pierre and Jeans are also present in the cavalry unit. Robert bows his head, not showing any expression. She looks down into the carriage. Ion looks through the glass and is surprised, "She brought troops, it is unbelievable that there is such a rude person." The Knights of Arno spread out around, escorting the Corsica family's group. Emilio opens the car in his surprise. Seeing him come out, Ion hurriedly calls, "Father." She sits on her horse and looks at Emilio. He reaches out and says with a smile, "The Duchess, your mother, must have had a reason to confidently invite me to the territory like this." Alexandra puts her hand on Emilio's hand. He leans over and kisses her hand lightly, "Please express my respect for the Arno Duchess's hospitality." After greeting each other, the group led by Alexandra enters the castle. He uncomfortably glances at the tall knights outside. Emilio notices this and asks, "Ion, what is making you uncomfortable?" He frowns and thinks for a moment. Then Ion complains, saying that they are welcoming guests, but they bring armed knights. It would be mild if they just turned around and left in anger. Suddenly he reaches out towards him, startling Ion. Emilio leans close to his son's ear and says deeply, Ion, open your eyes and look carefully. Although they are holding swords and bows, they are not wearing armor. The Duchess of Arno is not showing off military strength. Now that the real master is absent, no one knows when foreigners will invade this land. The Duchess has come here to safely welcome guests, and has prepared in the most effective form possible. He pats him on the shoulder and continues to explain, that is also the Duchess herself, not a knight. After Emilio sits back in his seat, Ion reaches out and touches the back of his neck, listening silently. He recounts that, 15 years ago, when the Duke was at the front lines, Arno was invaded by the rebel Jacob. That person was the second son of the former King Victor I. At that time, to resist the holy siege, the Duke's wife, who was pregnant with Alexandra, Duchess Bianca, stood up to protect the territory until her husband returned. Emilio concludes coldly, the current Duchess is acting exactly like her mother, that is an extremely strong sense of sovereignty. He intently looks at his father. Then Ion's gaze turns towards the window and says, it seems that father is very satisfied with that stubborn child. He does not reply quickly and just looks out the window. In Emilio's eyes is the straight back on her horse. He squints his eyes and smiles, admitting casually, of course I am satisfied, she will be the one who hands over all of Arno to my son. Finally, the carriage slowly passes through the city gate. In front of the mansion, Baron Langdon and his wife are waiting. Emilio gets off his horse and walks towards everyone. He greets with a fake smile. Cyril hides in the crowd and watches Emilio from afar, judging him. Although he is younger than I remember, he is indeed the Earl of Corsica. He intently observes him. Cyril anxiously bows his head. He looks at his trembling hand and thinks, I was afraid. No matter how high the hit rate is, because I have never liked hunting since I was a child, I have never shot at a living target. Cyril uses his left hand to tightly hold his trembling right hand. He realizes, only after facing it do I understand, how terrifying and afraid I am of killing a living creature. Taking someone's life for my own desires, is that something that can be forgiven? Cyril is startled when he hears Alexandra's voice, let me lead the way for you. He frowns and watches her back. Alexandra is walking with Ion. She politely says, Lord Count of Corsica, he replies, well then, please help me. Seeing that person, Cyril thinks, even though he is still very young, I recognize him. That is Ion, Alexandra's husband. He intently looks at the two of them. Cyril's right hand trembles even more violently when Alexandra was dragged to the battlefield. That guy did not protect the wife he had an engagement with. What did that bastard do? Finally, his hand stops trembling. Cyril looks at his hand and falls into contemplation. Then his eyes become firm and he tells himself, I must act. Alexandra also sees Cyril's figure turning away in the crowd. Meanwhile, he is still thinking, I have to consider it as a chance accident. Standing from behind, Emilio also looks in the direction she is looking. Cyril is busy thinking about how to make it seem like a blind arrow from someone accidentally hit the honored guest, that it is just a misfortune. He does not realize that he has already been noticed by him. Cyril decides, 2 days later at the hunting festival, I will kill the Earl of Corsica. The night is late. Emilio carries the candle and walks along the hallway. At a corner, he meets a person wearing a black cloak. That person says respectfully, you have had a difficult journey to Arno, sir. Emilio says with a sinister smile, there is something that makes me uncomfortable. You, who understand the Arno territory well, must do something to help me. He orders, the day of execution is the hunting festival in 2 days. In the late night, candlelight shines from the mansion. In the large banquet hall, 2 long tables are filled with people. Emilio elegantly cuts a piece of meat on his plate. He brings it to his mouth to taste and suddenly notices. Emilio spares no praise, even the skill of the head chef in Arno is truly excellent. Even though the master is absent, they can still treat honored guests so well. It is truly admirable. At this time Alexandra has changed into a gorgeous dress and replies, I am lucky that it suits your taste, Earl of Corsica. My parents taught me how to manage the territory since I was a child, so that whenever the two of them are absent, there is nothing to worry about. She says confidently, of course, I also learn everything happily, because one day, I will become the master of Arno. Both father and son are surprised by Alexandra's words. Emilio replies with a fake smile, so that is it. Indeed, today will be an unforgettable day for me. The Duchess has such a strong spirit of sovereignty. Very likely to become a new relative of mine, truly. He holds the candle before leaving the meeting place with the person in the black cloak and coldly comments on her, a child who is so talented and sharp that it is unsettling. Although I vaguely guessed it from your letter, the Duke and Duchess of Arno have raised their children very well. But for my daughter-in-law, that correctness and intelligence are unnecessary. The one who will truly rule this territory is my son, Ion. Emilio glances at the other person. Wouldn't a girl who is too clever suppress Ion's spirit? The human soul is not strong, so you need to take action a little. Even if it is just a small scratch, if it is deeply ingrained, it will fester, burst open, and stain the whole body with blood. He turns around. Before leaving, Emilio leaves a sentence, well then, the day of action is, the hunting festival in 2 days. In front of the city gate, everyone is gathered, preparing to set off for the hunt. The knights are each doing their job, carrying the equipment and loading it onto the carts. Ion glances and sees a person bowing down, stroking 2 hunting dogs. He frowns, looking like he is not happy. Alexandra recognizes this sensitively. It seems that you are not very interested in hunting. Ion sighs, is not hunting something that the servants can take care of themselves? There is no need to make such a show like this as a military exercise. And also, it is a bit really pitiful. He turns around, trying to hide the emotions on his face. Ion is very embarrassed that she discovered it and quickly justifies, no, I am just. Alexandra does not pay attention to his embarrassment. She says with a smile, it is good to be engaged to someone who is so gentle. Ion does not know how to refute. He leaves angrily, see you later. Watching Ion's back, Alexandra secretly comments, Ion de Corsica, and the first time I met him yesterday, he looked so dissatisfied that I was a little worried. But it seems it is not a big problem. In the distance, he is frantically pushing away a dog that is happily wrapping itself around him. Even so, in her heart, she still feels, but no matter how good a person is. What would they think if their fiancé wanted to become a knight? Alexandra hesitantly wonders, would they support me? What should I do if I am opposed? I want someone who can understand my heart. The image of Cyril holding her hand immediately appears in her head. Alexandra kicks a stone on the side of the road and concludes, like Cyril. The stone hits the side of the well and bounces off. She intently watches its movement. Then suddenly Alexandra is angry with herself, wait, what do I mean by, like Cyril? Pierre holding a bough suddenly stops on the road. He looks at her confusedly and asks, Miss, are you still here? Most of the participants in the hunt have already entered the forest. Alexandra pushes Pierre away embarrassedly, you go first, Pierre. I will follow you later. She tilts her head, revealing her blushing cheeks. He is confused, not understanding the reason. Then Pierre leaves with Jeans. When he asks, what about the lady, he can only scratch his head and reply, she told me to go first. Alexandra rests her hands on the side of the well, trying to calm herself. Get a grip, Alex, you are with the people from the family you are discussing an engagement with. She stands next to the well, her heart full of thoughts. Alexandra tries to justify it, Gaston and Mr. Robert have always supported me. There is nothing that makes Cyril more special than them. She breathes a sigh of relief without noticing that behind her, a person is quietly approaching from a carriage. He reaches out and pushes Alexandra hard in the back. The sudden push catches her off guard, and her whole body leans forward, falling into the well. Then the other person quickly leaves. Many bubbles rise to the surface of the water. Alexandra comes to the surface and takes a deep breath. She looks up at the mouth of the well and guesses, someone must have pushed me down. Alexandra grabs the rope of the pulley to get water and tries to shout loudly, up, is anyone there? But the rope seems to have been cut by someone. She blankly watches it fall down right in front of her. Looking at the cut end of the rope, Alexandra confirms, it was not an accident. Her head is filled with questions, who is it, why? What is the reason for pushing me into the well? Alexandra continues to try to shout loudly, hey, is there no one? Is there really no one, please, answer me. Someone has fallen in here. After shouting loudly for a while but no one comes, she gradually runs out of strength, her voice weakening. Please, the cold of the water gradually seeps into her body, causing Alexandra's hands to start trembling. She desperately struggles, help me. Alexandra looks up above. She thinks, my feet can't even touch the bottom, I am trying to keep myself from sinking with just a bucket. What if I sink, and no one comes? I am so scared, I am going to sink. How could you not hesitate? And jump into that icy water. At this moment, Alexandra thinks desperately of Cyril. Suddenly there is a loud call, Miss. Alexandra looks up. She sobs, Mr. Robert. Robert says anxiously from above, I will lower someone down right now. Try to stick close to the wall. He starts to lower the rope. They have gradually approached Alexandra. Alexandra's eyes are watery. Cyril swings down on the rope. He holds out his hand. Alexandra takes his hand, her face touched. Cyril, how did you? She hugs Cyril tightly. Cyril thinks, I should have boldly participated in the hunting group. No matter what happens, I still think it is best to stay away from Arnaud's group. Vincent, Yvette, Mr. Robert, and even Alexandra, I do not want to cause trouble for those who trust me. These goods can be brought out after the hunt is over. Those who are ready, please enter the forest. Everyone carries the luggage away. Cyril lifts the curtain and steps out. Along with that is a big sigh. Cyril thinks, once my goal is achieved, I will leave Arnaud. As long as Earl Corsica disappears, Alexandra won't have to go to war anymore. Alexandra and I will not repeat the ending like the past. Cyril raises his bow and shoots. He thinks, all I need to do is eliminate Emilio de Corsica. Suddenly there is a voice from behind, but will everything be resolved just by killing him? Cyril turns around to look. He is surprised, what? I thought this man was just a hallucination of mine. The man says, think more thoroughly, Cyril de Servin. Just because one person disappears does not mean the seeds that he has sown will disappear with him. And moreover, Alexandra is drowning in that well. Cyril is horrified and his face darkens. He immediately turns and leaves. Cyril runs anxiously. At this time, they have successfully rescued Alexandra. Cyril is also pulled up. Alexandra says, Mr. Robert, someone deliberately pushed me into that well, but I will not go looking for the person who caused this. Anyway, our guests must be welcomed smoothly. Robert looks at her worriedly. He says softly, Miss, do you think Earl Corsica is the one who caused this? If not, then who else in Arnaud? But why now and not another time? Alexandra can't believe it, and chose this moment to threaten the air. Either Earl Corsica is testing Arnaud, or he is doing this to probe my reaction. She sighs and says, get close to change. I will go to the hunting area. Cyril worries. Alexandra went straight to the hunt afterwards, and even hunted a roe deer for the evening banquet. As if nothing had happened. Alexandra changes into a new outfit and stands to greet the guests. Emilio says with interest, although the trip was short, I have learned a lot more about Arnaud. Take care, Miss of Arnaud. Alexandra puts her hand on his and replies, you too, take care, Earl of Corsica. The hand placed on Alexandra's is shaking slightly. Emilio notices this. He smirks with delight. He kisses Alexandra's hand. Then he quickly gets into the car and leaves. Emilio turns his head back and looks at the figure hiding behind the tree. His face is a little dazed. That person is none other than Cyril. Cyril looks at him uncomfortably. This expression of Cyril's makes Emilio very satisfied. He turns and exclaims, so there are also some people from Castilla here. Disgusting. Scene changes to the capital of Servin, La Hoz. Audely's delicate hand is placed on the bed. Bianca puts her hand on top of hers. Her face is very worried. The hands of the two people are clasped tightly. Audely says apologetically, I seem to be sleeping more than usual lately, I am troubling you, Bianca. Bianca smiles. She asks caringly, how do you feel, Your Majesty? Audely, with a weary face, looks at her. Audely replies, this is the first time in a long time that I have such a nostalgic dream. That person is the Empress of Servin, Audely. Bianca asks, was it a very happy dream? Audely replies, no, but it is a memory that I can only see in my dreams. 20 years ago. Audely is walking in the palace. She calls out loudly, Emilio. Then she hurriedly corrects herself, oh no, should I call you Earl of Corsica now? Emilio smiles brightly and looks at her, Audely. He says happily, traveling from the capital to here must not have been easy. Thank you for coming. Audely replies gently, because this matter is related to the brothers and sisters who grew up with me, I must come. She asks, can you take me to Eloise? It suddenly starts to rain at this time. The two walk and talk. Emilio recounts, my mother once said that because twins share too much from when they are still in their mother's womb, the connection between them is more special than anyone else's. That is probably why, Audely. I can easily accept my father's death. Eloise's body is placed in a flower coffin. He continues, but the reality that Eloise is no longer by my side is something that I still can't accept. Emilio reaches out and puts his hand on his heart. It is as if a hole has been torn in my heart that nothing can fill. If I had known that we would be separated so soon, I would have kept her by my side forever instead of marrying her off elsewhere. Audely replies sadly, I understand. Emilio reaches out and gently strokes his sister's face. Emilio continues, I am hunting down the person who murdered my father and Eloise. According to the surviving sailors, the perpetrators were pirates from Castilla. Audley is surprised and stiffens. Emilio's eyes change and become fierce. Blood debt must be paid with blood, right, is not that so? Audley leans helplessly against the head of the bed. She continues to tell, a few years later, the previous emperor promoted a political marriage as a peace treaty with Castilla. At that time, it was the marriage between my nephew, Albert, and the Princess of Castilla, Navarra. One of the people who opposed the marriage between us was Emilio de Corsica. At that time, Audley had said, Emilio, I understand how you are feeling, but with this peace treaty, the Castilian navy has pledged to suppress the pirates. Emilio had coldly replied, do not you hear that sound, your highness, Audley? Audley stiffens. The atmosphere becomes more oppressive than ever. Emilio says, I admire you. I can hear Eloise's screams. An heir to the throne carrying the blood of Castilla. Audley stares blankly at him. Emilio says with a scary expression, I am really looking forward to the child that will be born soon. A worried look flashes across Audley's face. At this time, Audley is tired and lying in bed. Leaving aside politics and diplomacy, I completely understand the emotions of the Earl of Corsica. Because the Princess of Servan, Audley, is also like siblings with Emilio and Eloise. If that princess had nothing to do with the throne, perhaps I would have prioritized my friendship with Emilio. But in my position as Empress Audley, the sole pillar of the Servan royal line, she remembers her image with Cyril. Then she continues, I have a responsibility to nurture him until Cyril grows up and inherits the throne. I must live well and protect him. I am truly sorry, Bianca, you should take care of the Duchy of Arno when the Duke is not here. Bianca promises, please do not worry, Your Majesty, even without me and my husband. Our daughter is still in Arno. Back to Alexandra. She says gloomily, damn it, I caught a cold. She asks, where is Cyril, is he okay, is he not injured? The butler hesitates, Miss, I also feel sorry for him, but, I have told him to stay away from the castle for a while. The order to not reveal information, but the rumors still spread, so the atmosphere around Arno Castle is very gloomy. Although thanks to Cyril we were able to rescue the Duchess in time, but in the eyes of others, they do not see Cyril as a benefactor, but as a foreigner with an unknown background. Alexandra is sad. She tells herself, I can't just be sick like this. What is making me worried now is, the concerns and fears are gradually gnawing at me and everyone else in Arno. Someone says, what do you think, Baron Langdon? Robert crosses his arms and says, since the incident at the hunting festival, it feels like someone is secretly making Arno unstable. A bodyguard who comes from another land, who came here with the hope of being trained as a knight, is actually a spy, is something that has happened again and again, but... He hesitates, Gasper. To be honest, among the knights that I have trained myself, I do not believe that any of them could pose a threat to our territory. Langdon replies, Robert, even if Earl Corsica planted someone in the territory of Arno, he would not be able to go much further, especially right before the engagement of his son with the Duchess. But we can't just stand by and do nothing. As we have discussed, we will be forced to take the Duchess out of Arno. Cyril sits thoughtfully under a tree, looking into the distance. He worries, Alexandra, I do not know if she is still okay. She was very scared at that time. Cyril remembers that sentence, if you kill him, will everything be resolved? Just because one person disappears does not mean the seeds that he has sown will disappear with him. Cyril thinks, if it was not for that man, I probably would have lost Alexandra. That voice is the one who told me to find it, that must be a man with icy hands. Cyril hugs his head. Suddenly thinking too much makes my head hurt. If you are going to say something to me, you should say something simple, especially when you want to appear anywhere. He said that the seeds that Earl Corsica has sown will not disappear. It is true that he is the source of everything, but because he has a strong force behind him, that means that he has built a faction that is too strong and too closely knit. At night, Cyril sits huddled in a corner. Of course, if I had one too, I could have stopped them from sending Alexandra to the battlefield. Cyril makes a sad face. Winning the hearts of the people is a task that is too difficult for me. Outside there is a call, Cyril, it is Robert, can we talk for a bit? Robert pushes the door open and steps in. Robert says, good, you are still awake. Cyril is confused, not understanding what is happening. Robert gives him something, I thought it would be difficult for you to find it, so I brought a few winter clothes. Try them on, just in case the clothes are too small or the sleeves are too short. Cyril looks at him happily. He takes out the clothes. Robert helps him put them on, this should fit. He suggests, let us go for a walk to see if it is comfortable to walk in these clothes. Uncle Vincent, I am going out. Cyril looks up at Vincent. He looks at him kindly. Vincent's sudden action surprises Cyril. Cyril thinks, I do not know why, but the way Vincent gently stroked my injured arm for a moment, made me feel like it was a prayer. He stands there blankly, not understanding what is happening. Vincent stands and waves goodbye. It is already dark at this time. Cyril and Robert have walked for a while. Robert asks caringly, is it warm enough wearing that? How does it feel to walk? Cyril nods. Robert is relieved to see this. I see, then. Suddenly an arrow shoots out from somewhere and sticks into the tree. It is the arrow that Cyril shot. He is also very curious, why did he suddenly tell me to shoot an arrow? Cyril looks at Robert approaching the tree. Robert says, your skills have improved a lot. On the mountain near the hill, the hunting area, I found your bow and quiver. He asks, why were you loitering around the hunting festival? Cyril is slightly horrified. Robert asks him sternly, that is a good position to aim at the group moving to the hunting area. Were you trying to assassinate someone with these bows and arrows? Cyril is stunned and can't respond. His hands are trembling. Robert continues, when the Duchess was only 5 years old, she was kidnapped. The person who kidnapped the Duchess that year. I thought that he had fallen into the Arno River and drowned, but all the evidence found recently has indicated that he may have survived and escaped. In the village where you saved Mr. Vincent and where the two of you were discovered at the bridge. You deliberately jumped into the river, knowing in advance that you would survive by being trapped on that bridge, because doing so would help you gain the Duchess's trust. I thought it was strange from the moment you knew the Duchess was in danger that you did not participate in the hunting festival. Tell me, are you really suffering from memory loss? Cyril is scared. He finally realizes that it is because of this that I have not been able to get anyone to truly stand on my side all this time. Even at this moment, I do not know how to justify myself. Robert crosses his arms and stands looking at him. Cyril looks at Robert with a determined look. I want to convince Mr. Robert at any cost. Cyril remembers when Robert bathed him. And also when they practiced archery together. Although it was only for a short time, but I had the idea that if my father were still alive, that is what it would feel like. Think, please, what are you going to say to make him believe in you? As you said, I have acted suspiciously, but... Cyril slowly approaches Robert, his body still trembling slightly. How can I make him not hate me? If he can't trust me, then it is okay to die at his hands. But if I die here, that means Alexandra's death will also happen. No, I can't let that happen. Cyril is currently as if he is being submerged in water. He desperately thinks, this feeling. Cyril remembers the time he experienced it before. It is that feeling. Then he remembers the image of Alexandra. This place is my room in La Hoz. After my mother returned to Castilla, this is me in the present at 5 years old. Before meeting Alexandra, I was always alone. I hope that I can be by Alexandra's side forever in the present. Alexandra, the one you will love, please protect her. Even if I disappear from this place. Cyril remembers when Alexandra helped him practice, you do not have to go this far, that is a bit too much. Cyril is moved to tears. Because Alexandra said, I believe in your sincerity, Cyril. So, Cyril, come with me. Cyril thinks emotionally, Alexandra, why is she here? He looks straight into her sincere eyes. Alexandra scolds, oh my, you crybaby, you do not need to cry. I was going to take you with me, so I asked him to check if there was anything wrong. Cyril looks at him, Mr. Robert. Cyril's mood also calms down somewhat. Suddenly Pierre rushes in from somewhere and says, you see, this child is not a spy. If this foreigner was a spy, he would have shot the arrow at Mr. Robert when he was injured and run away. Moreover, this young man has eyes like a calf. He seems good at archery, you trained him very well. Seeing that Cyril seems confused, Alexandra explains, from now on, to be knighted, I will have to go to another barack. Inside the room. These people are sitting waiting. Langdon says, all the people and knights in the Arno barack will believe that the master of Arno is Alexandra de Arno, the only daughter of the Duke and his wife, even if she marries. That is why I decided that before the Duchess marries, she must be knighted. Because that is the only way to gain control over both the issues in Arno and the military field. That control should be in the hands of Alexandra. That is my belief, Baron Gaspar de Langdon, advisor to the Arno army. And, saying this, Langdon's voice softens. It is also the firm belief of the late head butler, Vincent. And it is also what I am sure that the two of them were always thinking about. If the legitimate heir commands the army as a knight, then even if her future husband's family tries to seize control of Arno, you can easily resist them. Alexandra says, but in the end my move to another territory was cancelled, right? Could it be because they did not want me to become a knight? Langdon replies, as I said before, if it was not for the invasion of Aragon, then everything would have gone according to plan. But the peace treaty with Aragon was broken after only 10 years. And if you want to become a knight, it also means engaging in war. As the heir and only daughter, they did not want that to happen at any cost. If you can't become a noble knight in peacetime, then they would rather let you live as a noble lady and be protected in wartime. And keep your life safe. Alexandra lowers her face and contemplates for a moment. Suddenly Robert speaks, but when you were pushed by someone and fell into darkness, you must have realized that you are standing in the middle of a battlefield. Alexandra. Although there is not enough evidence yet, Earl Corsica is the biggest suspect behind that incident. Moreover, he has refused the Duchess's request to send more reinforcements, using the engagement as an excuse. Can we really shake hands with a guy like that? The Lord and Lady are not here, so your fate must be determined by yourself. What will you do? Our Duchess. Alexander makes a decision. From now on, I will stop the night training courses, lock myself in my room, and focus on etiquette courses. On All Saints' Day, I will go to the capital to meet my mother. Please let Yvette take my sewing class. Our skills are equally bad, so no one will notice the difference. Please remind Lucy that every time she visits my room, she must pretend that I am very happy. Finally, I need someone to go with me when I leave Arno. Please confirm for me that they are capable enough. Back to the present. Robert said, the two of you will escort the young lady to the Neustria territory. An old friend I owe a debt to is living in Neustria. When you meet her, give her this. Robert placed a chess piece in Pierre's hand. Pierre exclaimed, oh ho. Then he whispered teasingly in Robert's ear, you mean that chess partner that Sir Silver always mentions? I will make sure it gets to her. Robert reminded, be quiet. We have to set off before dawn. They left that very night. Robert questioned, Cyril, you still have not answered any of my questions. Cyril looked a little embarrassed, but at least he felt somewhat relieved. Robert said, do you know why I still choose to trust you? Because of that expression and those eyes. Cyril, you might not be a great gambler or an outstanding politician, but I can see that you could become a good friend to the young lady. A sincere look can sway someone. I have told you this before, have not I? For the sake of the loved ones who are waiting for you, do not sacrifice yourself needlessly. Just as I treat Alexandra and Pierre as if they were my own children, even if only for a short time, you are also a student I have taught. So do not throw your life away so easily. Make sure you come back safe, Robert said, handing Cyril a bow. Cyril's eyes lit up. He could not help but hug Robert tightly. Robert's face flushed slightly. Cyril's eyes sparkled as if he were deeply moved. He teared up, even to someone with an unknown background like me, this man still gives me a place to belong. The house still had its warm, yellow lights on. Vincent, who readily gave me a small but warm corner of the room. Sir Robert, who trained me like the others. Robert patted him gently on the back to comfort him. Pierre turned back and exclaimed in a panic, what is going on? He came forward and demanded, Sir Robert, hug me too. Robert sighed helplessly, all right, please hurry, it is almost dawn. Pierre hugged him contentedly. Cyril, still with teary eyes, thought, at that moment, I swore. For those who have opened their hearts to me. Alexandra. I will create a future where she survives at all costs. Beginning the journey to Neustria, we started the journey with a firm belief, but a small yet serious problem began to arise as soon as we crossed the border of the Arno territory. They stopped and lit a fire to warm themselves. Alexander called his name, Cyril. Cyril's face was covered in sweat from the fever. Alexandra asked, how are you feeling? Do you want some water? Is your foot okay? Cyril hung his head. He stretched out his foot, not okay at all. Alexandra, I have learned now that you have to cut your toenails before hiking. After climbing up and down the mountains for 3 days, my feet have been tormented because I had to wear these tiny fur shoes. Pierre also came over to take a look. He said, young lady, this young man's toenails are the main cause. Pus is starting to come out from under the nails. You might be able to keep walking for a few more days, but the wound will become serious. Then, we will go to the village down there to have your toenails removed before continuing the journey. Cyril's ears perked up, hearing this as if he would been struck by lightning. Even Alexandra could not believe it. Remove the toenails, Cyril thought in horror. How can he say that about my precious toenails? Pierre confirmed again, yes, they are dead toenails, so it is better to remove them. Wouldn't that be more comfortable than walking for a month? Alexandra was convinced. Then, Cyril, do as Pierre says. She encouraged, it is okay, you will get through it. You fell into the river once and broke your arm, and you were still okay. Cyril internally screamed. This is so embarrassing. I am not even seriously injured or anything, it is just my stupid toes. If anyone sees me like this, they will think I fell off a horse or got stabbed. I know that someone like me will never score points in Alexandra's eyes, but at least I do not want her to worry about something as trivial as my toes. They arrived at the village. Pierre stopped and said, all right, then. When we get to the village, we can't mention the young lady. Just treat her like my younger brother, Alec. You can also call me brother like before. Alexander quickly adapted, yes, brother. Pierre turned to Cyril and instructed, you too. You can call me brother, even if only in your head. We will get to eat hot food after 3 days of something that is not beef jerky. Alexandra excitedly said, when he first came to our territory, he was already an apprentice, even though he was only 15 years old. Gaston and I had only just started. He taught us like a real brother. Alexandra unconsciously recalled the happy times back then. I have always wanted to become someone like him ever since then. Cyril felt happy just listening to her stories. He thought, and Alexandra I did not know. Her past self. So playful and witty. It must have shaped the 20-year-old Alexandra that I met. The person she wants to become, someone like Sir Pierre. He stared intently at Pierre. His feet were still oozing pus. Cyril lamented, my toes hurt so much. Finally, they arrived at the village. An old woman said, oh my, this Castilla boy. If you had come any later, you would have had to cut off your toes. Everyone was shocked. What? Pierre angrily said, that is ridiculous. What is the big deal about cutting off his toes? Is this old woman talking nonsense? The old woman said, the problem is not the toenails, but the flesh underneath. Some parts have already started to necrose. The old woman scared them, if you disregard this, do you know that the necrotic cells could spread to your ankles? It is lucky it is just the toes, because you might have to cut off your whole foot. If you are a hunter, you should know this. There are many people who are not aware of it and have died in the mountains. Pierre sighed in relief, thank goodness we made it to this village before that happened. Cyril thought to himself, that is scary. A man asked, by the way, are you hunters from the south, where are you planning to go? Pierre replied, we are. A lady of a guest from Castilla wants a snow leopard skin, so we are heading as far north as possible. Herbalist, have you heard anything about snow leopard hunting? The herbalist replied, I do not know, but there have been quite a few outsiders in the village lately. From burly men like you to a group of about 10 children who said they came from the south. They are not peddlers, nor are they hunters like you, so I was curious. Therefore, I asked them what they were doing here. The man who had previously threatened him, don't investigate. You will be in danger. He was too afraid to say anything. He continued, because those guys became fierce. The children with them looked like they had been taken by human traffickers. Pierre was surprised, human trafficking, isn't that a crime that is severely punished in the Arno territory? If you report something like that to the Lord, you will be rewarded. He replied, because once you cross those mountains, you are no longer in Arno, but in a different area. Cyril pondered, he means he has not reported it yet. Human trafficking is illegal anywhere on Servan. Human trafficking, was there a human trafficking incident in the northern region when I was young? Cyril looked around. He panicked, come to think of it, where did Alexandra go? Just as he thought this, she came in carrying a basket of vegetables. Alexandra's eyes met a man's. That person was none other than Gaston. She came closer to confirm, Gaston, you are Gaston, right? Gaston turned back in surprise. He asked, Alexandra. They both asked each other at the same time, why are you here? Alexandra called out his name, Gaston. Gaston was also surprised, Alex. What are you doing here? Gaston probed, aren't you about to get engaged? Alex stammered, well. Alexandra asked back, what about you? Aren't you training to become a knight in Corsica? Gaston avoided the question, it is just. Things are more complicated than that. Cyril was anxiously searching for her. He heard the sound of an argument from afar, aren't you going to tell them? Cyril looked in surprise at the two of them, Alexandra. Who is she talking to? Suddenly, someone walked past and bumped into Cyril. He fell to the ground. The person exclaimed, oh, shoot. Sorry, he said, reaching out to help Cyril up. The person who bumped into Cyril was a man with a familiar appearance. Cyril was also suspicious, this person looks familiar. He took his hand to get up. The man had a large scar on his face. He went over to Gaston. Gaston. Is the horse ready yet? Gaston hurriedly replied, yes, coming. He whispered to Alexandra, anyway, Alex, keep the fact that you met me today a secret, okay, got it. Alexandra, not understanding, cried out, hey, Gaston. She was confused, what the heck is going on? Gaston handed the horse over to the man. His eyes did not show happiness. Cyril rummaged through his memories, if that is Gaston, is not he Alexandra's foster brother, Yvette's older brother, they look really alike. But why does even that man look so familiar? Cyril remembered the image of him being a faction of Emilio in his past life. A look of horror appeared in Cyril's eyes. The Count of Corsica. They are his henchmen. Gaston turned around and looked again. Cyril looked worried, that is right, that man's name is also Gaston. He has been cooperating with Sir Nova, the right-hand man of the Count of Corsica, for a long time. If Gaston is from Arno and knows Alexandra, then why is he working for the Corsica side? Alexandra asked. Cyril, do not tell me you saw everything. Cyril looked at her sadly. Alexandra said, he is the foster brother I told you about. He is a man of few words and cautious, so he will definitely keep the fact that I am here a secret. I do not know why he is here, but Gaston also asked me to keep our meeting here a secret. You will do that too, right? Cyril immediately nodded. He thought, if that is what Alexandra wants. Alexandra looked at the basket of vegetables in front of her. Then she looked at Cyril's bandaged feet. She realized something. She asked, don't tell me you came out looking for me. Barefoot. Alexandra turned and left, not forgetting to instruct, right now, the most important thing is to make sure your feet heal quickly, so do not worry about me and take care of yourself first. Cyril sadly lowered his eyes. Cyril slowly followed behind. He thought, she is right. She trusted me to come along, but I am holding her back. The two of them walked on like that. Alexandra worriedly turned back to look. Suddenly, she spoke up, Cyril, you must be a calm person when you are underwater. Cyril was confused by her statement. Without waiting for him to ask, Alexandra explained, because you were completely fine after jumping straight into the river to save Sir Vincent, and you also jumped down the well to save me. Being stared at by Alexandra, Cyril's cheeks flushed. He thought, I only jumped down there because I was the smallest. Alexandra continued, even now, just thinking about falling into the water, look. She finished, raising her trembling hand. Then she said, our journey has only just begun. If we have to cross rivers and streams in the future, I am the one who will hold you back. So do not feel guilty. And when I am scared, you have to be the one to help me. Okay. Cyril's mood improved somewhat. He looked tenderly at Alexandra. She was surprised by that look. Alexandra thought, I feel happy when Cyril smiles like that. She recalled an image from the past. Then she determined that, maybe it is because I always see him crying. Seeing Cyril cry makes my heart feel broken. From now on. I hope he does not cry in his sleep anymore. I hope he can continue to smile like that. On the other side, Gaston and the man continued on their journey. The man asked, Gaston. That kid who looked like the girl from earlier. Who were you talking to? It looked like you were arguing. Gaston replied, that quack. He was trying to force me to buy medicine from him. The man instructed, if someone approaches you, do not forget to be extremely vigilant, Gaston de Langdon. He turned his head and said in a threatening tone, what we are doing, some people will call it treason, but it is all for the sake of this servant country. Don't forget that just one mistake could lead to the destruction of both the Arnaud and Langdon families. Gaston unconsciously thought of his younger sister, Yvette. His face was fearful. Gaston promised, yes, please do not worry. I won't get caught. Scene changes to a house. Yvette happily called out, Sir Vincent, look at me. Vincent looked on and exclaimed, oh my. That looks so beautiful. Are you embroidering a carrot? Yvette replied, no, it is a horse. A horse. I thought since it is for Alec, she would embroider a horse. Vincent was shocked and startled. He thought helplessly, she is just like her father, but she inherited this from her mother. Yvette continued her sewing work. The little girl said, oh, by the way, Sir Vincent, why is Alec going so far away to be knighted? She could also be knighted in our territory. Everyone knows Alec's skills. My father and Sir Robert are both knights, so would not they be able to grant her that title? Vincent smiled kindly at her. He slowly explained, my little lady, do not you often wander wherever you want throughout the Arnaud lands, you are always safe, even when you are carrying expensive embroidered cloth and silk. That is because the laws in Arnaud and Langdon are very strict. Public safety is also better compared to other territories. Yvette wondered, so how does that relate to Alec not receiving her knighthood in Arno? What is the connection? Vincent explained in detail, in regions with good public safety like Arno, the knights always quickly eliminate bandits and thieves, usually dealing with robbers or mountain bandit groups by suppressing them. But because the young lady is the heir to Arno, she needs to achieve something in a clear and influential event outside of the territory. However, going to the front lines to face Arago in a life or death battle is too dangerous. Therefore, we chose to take the young lady to a territory outside to achieve something, and then have her be knighted there. The Marquis of Neustria is the most powerful lord in northern Servin. That place borders Aragon and is a place where opportunities to achieve something and serve are likely to appear. Yvette pondered for a moment. The little girl replied, I see. What about my older brother, is that also why he went to the Corsica territory? Vincent looked at the little girl without answering. He sighed softly. Then he gently stroked the little girl's head. In the capital of Servin, Lajas. The letter was placed neatly on the table. Sover spoke up, sending children to other territories to train as knights in noble families is considered on par with marriage. In other words, it is a way to show which side you are on. Even when war breaks out between countries, noble families can't just point swords at each other, right? After Lady Alexandra's trip to Corsica was cancelled, the reason we sent Gaston to train as a knight was to ensure that the connection between our two families remained strong. Bianca and Yvonne held each other's hands tightly. Sover continued, in the current situation, when the actions of the Count of Corsica's family are becoming suspicious, Gaston is no different from a hostage. Worry was evident on Yvonne's face. Bianca worried, Yvonne. Yvonne replied, young lady, I am fine. She said, when Gaston was little, I prepared myself for this when he said he wanted to become a knight like his father. Yvonne remembered when the whole family was together in the past. She silently prayed, I just hope Gaston does not encounter too much danger. Scene changes to a town. Cyril was repaying the old woman by helping out. Suddenly, he realized something. Cyril thought, Alexandra, she said she is okay, but after accidentally meeting Gaston, she occasionally looks like she is sinking deep into thought about something. Pierre used an axe to break wood. He said, we have to get horses. Alexandra asked in surprise, why did you suddenly change your mind to go by horse? Pierre replied, according to what I have heard, it seems that they are on the route we have to take. You were talking about those suspicious people, the ones from the south, maybe human traffickers, there are only 3 of us, so it would be very dangerous if anything happens. Now I am thinking it is better to buy horses and speed up than to go slowly like we are now. And because of that kid's feet, too. Cyril accidentally overheard the conversation as he came out. Alexandra asked clearly, brother, are those people that herbalist was talking about really human traffickers? Pierre said, it reminds me of things on the front lines. Recently, in many territories in the south, there have been many cases of missing children, especially boys of the same age. There have always been trashy parents who dared to sell their children for money. Cyril pondered, hearing Pierre's words, I finally remember. When I was reviewing old documents with Alexandra after she ascended the throne. At that time Alexandra said, Your Highness, this is a record from the guards, written during the invasion of Aragon 10 years ago. It says here that many children in the slums disappeared at night, and those children were trafficked. Looking closely, the tax column in the north suddenly increased right after that. Could there be a connection? Back to the present, Cyril secretly analyzed, if the guards' records talk about this, it is very likely that those children were sold to the north. Then why is he, Gaston? Alexandra stared blankly. She struggled to arrange the dry firewood. Pierre sighed. Out of nowhere, he went and tugged on Alexandra's hair, causing her to jump. Making Cyril, who was peeking from behind the wall, also startled. Pierre asked, Hey, what are you worried about? Alexandra blushed, me, I am not worried about anything. Pierre said with a smile, You always bite your lower lip when you are worried about something. Alexandra was surprised, She lowered her head, her eyes filled with sadness. After struggling with her conscience, Alexandra turned and opened her mouth, Brother, there is something I need to talk to you about. Can we go back and find Gaston? Can we go find Gaston? Cyril was also very worried. Cyril sadly thought, Alexandra told Pierre everything about meeting Gaston, but she told me it was a secret. So Senior Pierre is someone trustworthy to Alexandra, so she can tell him everything. Pierre replied with a smile, we can't do that. Alexandra insisted, but. Pierre said, Alec, if what you said is true, then Gaston must be in a difficult situation. We may be outside of the Corsica territory, and it would not be anything special if he was just sightseeing with a knight he works for, but he also has a reason to say it is a secret, right? An apprentice has no choice but to follow the orders of the knight they serve and the lord they belong to. If it is a secret he can't tell you, then it is very likely that it has something to do with the Corsica territory. That also means that we can't easily help Gaston escape. Moreover, if we act rashly and try to rescue him, your identity will be exposed, and that will cause trouble for Arno. Alexandra's face fell. She replied dejectedly, I understand. Pierre patted her head to comfort her. Alec, if you are worried about Gaston, it would be better if we quickly got to Neustria and asked the lord there for help. Alexandra thought deeply. She pouted, there is no other choice but to accept it, even though I do not like it at all. Pierre looked at her gently. Then he said, the order I received from my superiors was to bring apprentice Alec to Neustria, but if it is an order from Lady Alexandra of Arno, then I am willing to obey. Alexandra looked at him with sparkling eyes. She shook her head, no, everything you said makes sense. Because I am not capable enough, nor do I have the skills, I won't be stubborn like that. I will get to Neustria as quickly as possible. The two looked at each other and smiled. Pierre stood up, then I will go find that quack first. To ask if he can sell the donkey for a horse. Since when did that quack become Sir? At the corner of the wall, Pierre froze. He discovered traces that Cyril had left behind. Seeing that Pierre's expression was different, Alexandra asked, what is wrong? Pierre said, I am sure he was just here. Cyril walked barefoot on the ground. He was panting from exhaustion. Cyril remembered every word they had said to each other, everything you said makes sense. Because I am not capable enough, nor do I have the skills, I won't be stubborn like that. What Cyril cared about most was Alexandra's happy expression at that time. Cyril thought to himself, it is strange. In a place where I have never been hurt before. It hurts so much. At the time when the sun was still appearing, Pierre and Alexandra took care of the horses together. He turned back and asked, hey, can you ride a horse? You seemed okay when you were sitting on that donkey. Cyril thought, that is something I am not exaggerating when I call it my specialty. To be honest, I am very confident in my riding skills because I practiced with Alexandra every Wednesday for 5 years. Alexandra told him, my mother and I both learned to ride from my father. Since then, I have always wanted to become as good at teaching riding as my father once was. Those were the things she had said. Cyril told himself, but I have to play the role of a stranger with amnesia. So he shook his head. Pierre said, I see. Then Pierre pointed and said, Alec, you have to carry him. Cyril exclaimed in horror, what? Alexandra asked in surprise, me, Pierre replied, yeah, because carrying one more person is a bit much for me. We could only buy 2 horses because the village is small. These horses are a little small too. Alexandra looked in Cyril's direction, causing his cheeks to flush. Then she turned her face away shyly. Cyril thought to himself, of course she will be embarrassed. After all, she is the Duke's daughter. Cyril carefully observed the expression on her face. Alexandra said, we'll carry him. We do not have much time left. Let us set off quickly. Cyril panicked, what, she just agreed like that. Alexandra turned and said, it is okay, right, Cyril, I am very confident in my riding ability. She smiled brightly and promised, I will ride very safely. The more confident Alexandra was, the more flustered Cyril became. His expression was indescribably funny. The two climbed onto the horses. Cyril blamed himself, oh man, I should have said I knew how to ride, Alexandra instructed, hold on tight, Cyril. Cyril was sweating profusely. He was confused, where should I hold on to? Alexandra directly took Cyril's hand. Then she placed it around her waist. Alexandra reassured, it is okay, I am apprentice Alec now. Pierre said, let us go. Cyril's inner self screamed, I am not okay. Alexandra, on the other hand, was very relaxed, yes. They waved goodbye before leaving. And then quickly moved forward. And so, another difficult journey of mine began. Thanks to the horses, a journey that initially needed at least a month was shortened to 10 days. This is the map of the journey they had to take. It took more than 10 days to get used to it. Fortunately, there were no worrying confrontations with suspicious characters. We approached the Neustria territory safely, however. They were forced to stop because the road was flooded. Pierre dismounted to assess the situation. It has been raining a lot on this trip, so the water in the river has risen too much. It is not impossible to cross, but Alexandra walked over. Seeing this, Pierre asked her, Alec, what is the situation? Alexandra replied to him, the flags we see in the distance are those of the Neustria army, stationed in the western plains. They are quite numerous, and they are fully equipped. I am worried that we might have to confront them. She suggested, what if we contact the Neustria army first and explain our situation to them? Pierre breathed lightly, the daughter of the Duke of Arno has not officially come to meet the Marquis of Neustria is what we will have to say. I have met the Count of Neustria exactly once during this war. I told him the war was not going well, and although His Grace the Duke personally requested him to send troops, he flatly refused. He said, it seems I have placed a burden on you, Marquis of Neustria. Then I will hand over the eastern border to you. The Marquis of Neustria replied, you do not have to make such a request. As a guardian of Neustria, I am simply doing what I have to do. Pierre was stunned, Your Grace, if the Arno army is defeated, forget the border, would not even the country immediately turn into hell? Back in reality, Pierre said, it seems that the Count of Neustria is also as rigid, sticking to the books as Sir Robert. I do not know how he will react. The reason Sir Robert told us to find his chess partner is probably because he knew what the Count of Neustria was like. Alexandra spoke up, if he is that kind of person. This will definitely only cause more trouble. Pierre brushed it off, we do not have any other choice. Let us cross it, right here. Once we cross the river, it is only half a day to Neustria Castle. Cyril observed the strange expression on Alexandra's face. Then he looked at the river in front of him. It is narrower than the river in Arno, and the current is not too strong, but because of the rain, the water level looks quite high. He worriedly turned to look, Alexandra. Her body was trembling slightly. Cyril remembered what Alexandra had once said, even now, when I think about the time I fell into the water, look. Alexandra clenched her fist. Pierre's horse had gone halfway. He happily praised his mare, you look small, but you are not afraid at all. Good girl. Pierre turned to look at Alexandra. Seeing that she was still hesitant, Pierre asked, what is wrong, Alec? The horse was afraid and did not dare to move forward because of Alexandra's fear. Pierre was troubled, oh man, why is that horse so scared? Cyril looked at her worriedly. He remembered the past. Someone had once said, do you know, Your Highness? Horses are animals with incredible empathy. They can even sense the emotions of the person holding the reins. If the person holding the reins is afraid, the horse will also be afraid. In other words, it was Alexandra's fear that was affecting the horse's emotions. Alexandra's whole body went limp. Cyril anxiously looked at her, failing to. Killing people will take away Alexandra's future. I can't create a faction that can become a new force for her. And I can't solve her problems or even offer a solution, but if Alexandra is afraid, then I will accompany her on this path. At least, this is what I can do. Thinking this, Cyril got down and led the horse across the river. Pierre asked, hey, you. Are you okay? It is already this cold just from getting your feet wet. Cyril's whole body was trembling from the cold. Alexandra panicked and got off. She came closer to check, Cyril. Alexandra could not bear to see him shivering. She grabbed his hand. Then they promised each other, let us go. We have to get to Gaston as soon as possible. Let us hurry and meet Sir Robert's chess partner. Cyril looked at her with a determined gaze. At the port city. Blanche was walking. Arriving, she said softly, Lady Eva. A sharp woman with fiery red hair turned around. Blanche said, you have been outside for too long. Eva replied, I am fine, Blanche. The sun has finally come out, has not it? The days will get shorter and shorter, so I have to enjoy it now. Besides, for some reason, I feel a warm breeze blowing from the south. In northern Servan, the Neustria territory, Neustria Castle. Pierre got off his horse. He went over to talk to the guard. What Pierre handed over was the chess piece that Robert had asked for. An old friend of mine lives in Neustria. When you meet her. It turned out that the chess partner Robert had mentioned was Eva. Give her this. At the city wall gate. They had gone inside. Seeing that Cyril was still freezing, Alexandra was worried sick. Cyril's eyes were lifeless. Pierre anxiously asked, hey, you. Are you okay? Do you have a fever? You have changed out of your wet clothes, but you are still shivering. Cyril struggled to breathe. He thought to himself, I feel like I am about to faint. No, if I collapse here, I have to leave a good impression on Sir Robert's chess partner. Alexandra looked at him with sparkling eyes. Cyril smiled happily, after all, she is the only one who can persuade that stubborn duke in Neustria. Eva approached. She spoke up, are you the people who want to meet me? As soon as Cyril saw Eva appear, he was shocked and startled. His face was incredulous, what? Why is this person here? Cyril remembered when he was a child, My Highness, Cyril, it is unacceptable for someone who will become the king of Servan to struggle with something like this. I could never have imagined that the person I feared the most as a child would be the person I would meet in the Neustria territory. Cyril was so scared that he fainted. He had discovered the shocking truth. Cyril, Sir Robert's friend, was Eva, his tutor when he was 5 years old. Her words still echoed in his head. My Highness, what kind of king do you want to become? A merciful king loved by everyone, but sometimes they are seen as weak. However, a strict king will certainly have subjects who resent them and have animosity towards them. People's hearts are always changing. That is why a king must achieve a balance between mercy and strictness. Please, become a beloved king. Cyril thought, the person who told me to become a king who is both merciful and strict. Just like her words, Lady Eva was also a teacher who was both merciful and strict. A year later, after she came to live with me, Lady Eva was executed on suspicion of being an Aragon spy. Cyril vaguely woke up in a warm blanket. Both Pierre and Alexandra were very worried about him. He is awake. Cyril, are you okay? The two helped Cyril sit up. Cyril was tired and powerless. He did not seem to be aware of what had just happened. Alexandra said, this room is a side room that Lady Eva gave us. She helped us when you fainted. Cyril breathed out a hot breath. Lady Eva came closer to observe. Eva said, helping that person recover is the top priority. So I will hear your story later. Cyril was spiritually devastated. I completely ruined the first impression. Cyril confusedly covered his face. Blanche pushed the door open and entered. She spoke up, you, with the silver hair. Lady Eva is looking for you, so follow me. Pierre came forward to greet her. Madam, I am the protector of these children. If you have anything to say, please tell me. Blanche interrupted, I am not a madam. She retorted sharply, and Lady Eva requests to meet your master. All three were surprised by this request. Cyril panicked, how could she see through Alexandra's identity? Blanche glanced at Cyril. While everyone was confused, Alexandra stepped forward and said, please lead the way. She removed her hood. Alexandra reassured, don't worry, brother, I know exactly what I need to do. Then she left with Blanche. Cyril worriedly watched her go. Arriving, Alexandra sat properly. A chessboard was laid out before her. Eva asked, do you know how to play chess? Sir Robert must have taught his beloved granddaughter. Alexandra hesitated, Madam, since when did you know my identity? Eva said, I am not a madam. You can just call me Eva. And there is nothing to figure out. He told me in a language only he and I know. Sir Robert's king is the Duke of Arno. His queen is the Duchess of Arno. And his knight is Princess Alexandra of Arno, who wants to become a knight. So what has brought a young girl all the way here? Coming here on your own while the Duke and Duchess are away from the Arno territory, it must be something very important, right? Alexandra said, I hope to be knighted by the Count of Neustria as soon as possible. Eva explained, right now, the Marquis of Neustria has gone to suppress the bandits near the Western Plains. I do not know when he will be back. I would love to grant the princess's request, but for him, the security of Neustria is the most important thing. You will have to wait. Alexandra bluntly said, I can't. I can't waste any more time. She moved a chess piece and placed it in an empty spot. Then she said, I beg Lady Eva, please allow me to meet the Marquis of Neustria. Alec held the knight in his hand and offered it to the person in front of him with a plea, please, Lady Eva. Please, let me meet the Marquis of Neustria. She spoke her wish with a firm and straightforward gaze. Then she looked down with a sad expression and slowly said, I can't explain the details, but, Gaston, the son of Baron Langdon, is now probably involved in something dangerous. As she spoke, she remembered the image of a thin, shy boy standing next to a horse. Then Alec quickly brushed off that image and continued to speak to Lady Eva, it is about the appointment of a knight, but to help Gaston we need the power of the Marquis. This area is out of Arno's reach, and I am just a squire. Hearing this, Lady Eva slowly asked, does this have something to do with a human trafficking ring? Hearing this, Alec remembered the image of Pierre with a worried face telling her, recently, many children have disappeared in the Northern Territory. As if remembering something, Alec suddenly startled. Her hand clenched tightly, and her face became more determined. Seeing Alec like that, Lady Eva brushed her hand. She closed her eyes slightly and calmly said, human trafficking often occurs during wartime. Women and children from defeated territories are kidnapped and sold as slaves to other territories or foreign countries. But this time, the human trafficking situation is different. As she spoke, she reached out and grabbed the black and white chess pieces on the table, lifting them up. Then Lady Eva looked up and stared at her. Her hands held the black and white chess pieces like losers. Her eyes gradually turned scary. She said, to say they were wiped out at once is not an exaggeration. Many people have disappeared quickly. I heard that children are disappearing in the southern area from Lhasa, so I thought it might be related to. Neustria is a border area where free people also serve in the military. After saying that, Lady Eva released the chess pieces and looked up at Alec. Her voice softened as she continued, the labor force has decreased, and compared to other territories, we react quickly to the population decline. That is why the Marquis directs this as the action of an organized human trafficking ring. Under the guise of eliminating the robbers, he has been monitoring the human trafficking ring. Hearing this, Alec patted her chest and said with a determined look, if that is the case, I even have to help him more. Responding to Alec was Lady Eva's disapproving shake of her head. Joachim of Neustria is a conservative. In her mind, the image of the Marquis of Neustria was a rigid man with sharp eyes. He is not the type to comfortably share internal troubles related to the human trafficking ring with the princess of a neighboring country. If you interfere, it will be seen as an issue between the two territories. If he finds out I am talking about what is happening in Neustria so casually like this, he will definitely preach to me for 3 days straight, that stubborn man. At this point, disbelief appeared on Alec's face. Her eyes showed that she was fearing something. Unable to hide that fear, Alec lowered her head and took a heavy breath. Looking down at her hands intertwined, tightly squeezing the knight and trembling, her voice also trembled, Gaston. But perhaps because she was too scared, Alec could not say anything more. Lady Eva at this time also stood up and looked at the little girl in front of her. Then she put her hand on her shoulder and reassured her, I understand your worries, but for now, let us wait and see. I have been entrusted with the grandson of my close friend, so I must take responsibility. I will try to find a solution in my own way. As she said this, her eyes also became gentler at Alec's absent-mindedness. As if feeling the warmth through Lady Eva's hand, she unconsciously burst into tears, sobbing as if she had released some of her feelings. Alec said softly, thank you. As if hearing what she wanted to hear, seeing what she needed to see, she stood up straight at this time, her face showing satisfaction and a warm smile. As if remembering something, she continued, by the way, I heard that the eldest daughter of Count d'Abbeville and the Princess of Arno have been friends for a long time. Are you two still close? Hearing this, Alec looked up at Lady Eva with some confusion. An image of long, shiny brown hair appeared along with her words, in fact, that child is recently in Neustria. Then as if they both had the same thought, the figure of a girl with long curly brown hair and blue eyes looked beautiful and full of charisma, she was Muriel de d'Abbeville. In another place, someone was slowly peeling an apple skillfully. Cyril, with a tired face, hot flush, and sweat dripping, was sitting slowly eating the piece of apple in his hand. While eating, he looked at Pierre sitting nearby eating the apple and thought, will the conversation with Alexandra last longer? Pierre did not know what Cyril was thinking, only saw that he seemed to be almost done eating, so he slowly instructed, if you are done eating, lie down for a bit. If you hurt yourself here, someone will feel guilty. After hearing that, Cyril did not think anymore and relaxed more while eating and thinking, Sir Pierre is right. But unconsciously, he suddenly remembered the image of him leading the horse with her. His face showed a bit of sadness, if I get sick, Alexandra will probably think it is her fault. Pierre glanced at Cyril, his mouth was still chewing but his expression was a bit smug as if he could see the thoughts of the boy in front of him. Not waiting long, he blurted out, do you like Alexandra? Cyril choked on the apple he had just eaten after hearing this. He looked at Pierre with a bit of panic and a red face, full of questions. After the unexpected choke, all the apples on the plate fell out. This time, it was Pierre's turn to look in surprise at the scene of Cyril's face turning red with embarrassment and unable to speak. He seemed to understand something and then sighed at Cyril's blushing face, I can't believe I suspected someone like you, Hayes. Now I understand, your like is not just simple affection. Pierre unexpectedly analyzed further, making him even more embarrassed. Pierre no longer had a gentle look, but a more serious face reminded, but do not go too deep. The person who will become the princess's husband has been decided. A sincere reminder from Pierre. The words made Cyril no longer embarrassed, but on his face there was a bit of thought flashing across. He lowered his head, his blue eyes darkened, sweat rolled lightly on his cheeks and he understood that Pierre's reminder was for his own good. Thinking about the moment he saw her for the first time, he thought to himself, I know that even though I have not liked her for long, Alexandra, she is already someone else's wife. At that time, he was just a boy with an innocent face looking up at her. She was already a girl destined to be with someone else, but her smile like sunlight still remained in his memory. When he grew taller and reached her eye level, every time, she still saw him as a child in need of her care. The moment she took his hand and smiled gently at him seemed to be etched deep into his mind. That made his mind even more melancholic. Thinking deeper, Cyril remembered a mysterious man. Does that man know something? If I could change Alexander's future? Even just a little, if Alexander's life could change for the better. Just thinking this, an image of her smiling and laughing with someone appeared in his head. Even if that smile is for someone else, even if just for a glance, I remember her. The person who will be by Alexander's side in the future is not Ion de Corsia. Conflicting thoughts and images made him feel lost, but suddenly he remembered her radiant smile for him. It was so beautiful. Suddenly, a shadow darted in from outside the door. There you are. With the shout, both of them were startled and looked towards the door at the same time. Muriel appeared with disheveled hair and an angry face, making both of them break out in a cold sweat, not knowing what was going to happen. But unlike what they had imagined, she suddenly lowered her head and said softly, "Oh my, I was too rude." This action made the two boys in front of her even more confused. Then, Muriel suddenly turned away, leaving only the words, "Excuse me," in front of the two people who still did not understand what was going on. Coming back to their senses, the two of them peeked out the door, but she had already disappeared at the end of the hallway, turning in another direction and running away. Pierre said softly with admiration, "Oh, she really is a noisy red-haired girl. Does Sir Robert have a chess partner with a daughter?" Cyril did not reply, but he unconsciously thought, that is impossible. As far as I know, Lady Eva is still unmarried, and she did not have any children before the execution. Before they could finish gossiping, Muriel came back. Seeing the two of them standing there, she called out, "You two. Well, since things have come to this, will you help me?" As she spoke, she turned and brushed her hair to the side. At this moment, she looked extraordinarily beautiful and radiant. But in the next second, Muriel was again fidgety, one hand holding books and the other grasping her skirt, looking around like a thief, making Pierre a little angry and call out, "Hey, miss. Even if we are guests of Lady Eva, wandering around the castle like this will make us look suspicious." As he said this, Muriel pushed open the door of a room and strode in aggressively. Even so, Pierre still had to remind, besides, this guy has only been unconscious for less than half a day. As he said, Cyril still looked very tired, panting every breath as he followed the two. Muriel turned around and bluntly corrected Pierre, "She is called Lady Eva, not Madam. We have searched other places, and this floor is all that is left. If we do not find anything here, you can return to your room." Pierre looked puzzled. "Then at least tell us what we are looking for." Hearing this, she turned around, frowned, and said seriously, "The kidnapper of the heir of the Neustria family is still on the run." As Muriel finished speaking, both Pierre and Cyril were stunned in shock. In an instant, his face became terrified, and he screamed in his heart, "Kidnapped the heir, while the Marquis is not at the castle." Cyril suddenly thought of her and then he sank into his thoughts, thinking about it now, it is really strange. In my memory, Lady Eva should definitely be in the capital Lajas, during this time. The year my mother returned to her hometown in Castilla, she became the supervisor of my studies. At that time, I was 5 years old, this very year. If the woman Evangeline is now in Neustria, that means the future has changed. Thinking of this, Cyril's head was full of questions. Why is the future like this? At this time, in some place, perhaps in the mansion, there was a suspicious person holding a baby who was sucking on their hand and sleeping obediently. The woman with cold eyes hugged the baby tightly but still tried not to startle them. Outside, people were suspiciously exchanging glances, seemingly trying to reach a unified agreement. Pierre raised his hand and scratched his head and then spoke, breaking the current situation. "What is the description of the kidnapper of the heir?" Muriel also honestly and quickly replied, "Well, there is not much to describe, you will know when you see them." Hearing her seemingly non-answer made Pierre stiffen, but he still replied, "I see. Then let us quickly go find them so we can rest." Cyril heard this and looked up at him with sweat rolling lightly on his cheek. It was true, someone dared to ask, and someone dared to do. He could only look and follow Muriel and Pierre who were chattering ahead. "Please check that small room first." "Okay." He was walking ahead with a tired look, while she turned back and looked at Cyril, causing his head to be full of question marks and doubts. In his head, there were even more tangled thoughts. The heir has been kidnapped, but both that person and Sir Pierre do not seem to be nervous at all. I guess the situation is not as dangerous as I thought it was. While searching each room, he could not help but think, that is right, if it was really a big deal, they probably would have mobilized soldiers to search, not just a girl like this. Cyril and Muriel entered a room together. Behind the chests for storing things, they saw a head wearing a hooded cloak peeking out. Going closer, they saw a little girl holding a child in her arms. At the same time, the child burst into tears. She said loudly, "Found her. The girl broke away, hugging the child and running away before the horror of Cyril and the anger of Muriel. She shouted, "Christine, it is me." Christine glanced at him, who was still in shock, while running. "The kidnapper is that child." Seeing that, Muriel shouted, "Stand there and block the door." Her loud voice caused him to wake up and come back to his senses before seeing the current situation. But when he wanted to block the door, the girl had already hugged the child and rushed past the door. He only had time to admire in his head, "Ah, no, she is too fast." Like a gust of wind, Pierre appeared, using his burly figure to block the door, causing the girl to crash straight into him without having time to avoid. Neatly and quickly, he only needed to use one hand to lift the girl and the child into the air, not giving her a chance to resist. With a somewhat mocking voice, Pierre smiled, "Got you." The girl panicked when she saw the person lifting her up was him and shouted loudly, "Ah, let me go." Muriel's face was red with anger. She was panting and speaking loudly, "Christine de Neustria, do you know what you have done?" The nannies were very worried when the child disappeared. Even so, the girl stubbornly frowned and refused to give in. Cyril looked worriedly at the tiny child crying softly in his arms. He pursed his lips and murmured to himself, "This child is the heir. So the kidnapper is the child's older sister." While he was still thinking, the situation became a bit chaotic. Christine, even while being lifted up, was still trying to reach out and argue. "I am just trying to bring my sibling to mother." Muriel was helpless in the face of the girl's stubbornness. She brushed her hair and her voice was no longer harsh, "Bring her to mother." "Christine, do you know how rude that sounds?" At this time everything seemed to be silent, only Muriel's voice still hesitant. "Your mother, the Countess of Neustria, has already passed away." Hearing those words, Cyril opened his blue eyes wide in shock, stunned and unable to speak. Christine's face still retained its angry expression, but it seemed that those words had somehow frozen time, causing the girl to be still for a moment. In the next second, the girl forcefully bit Pierre's hand, causing him to jolt back in pain and successfully break the silence just now. Christine also successfully escaped from his hand, putting her tiny feet on the ground. Then the girl turned and quickly ran away. Pierre was about to chase after her, but Muriel stopped him. "Don't chase after her. She probably thinks her sibling must miss her mother's arms. She will probably cry her eyes out in the basement of the church, where the countess's coffin is placed. And then come back after eating dinner with the kitchen staff." She gently explained to the two of them. From the figure behind, the girl looked really lonely. Her voice was still even, "You see, Christine is mourning in her own way." Pierre tilted his face slightly and asked, "Did the Countess of Neustria pass away recently?" Under the curious eyes of the two, Muriel replied, "She became weaker and weaker after giving birth to that child, and then, while Lady Eva and I came to Neustria, she already." Hearing this, Cyril lowered his head and looked at the child in his arms with sympathetic eyes. Suddenly, he seemed to remember something. "Lady Evangeline is from Neustria." "That is right." Looking at the small child who had stopped crying and was sucking on their hand, he felt even more sorry, causing him to think a little about the past. "She must have been the one who took care of me after my mother died. For the children who also lost their mothers, has she returned to her hometown?" Suddenly, Muriel's voice rang out, pulling him back to reality. "Let me hold the child." Returning the child to her and looking at the two as if they were familiar, Cyril unconsciously fell into his thoughts again. "I feel jealous of those children who are much younger than me. Even though I feel a little pitiful, I can't help but be bothered by it." The more he thought, the more his face showed a clear look of sorrow. He remembered when he was little and could not help but wonder, "Then for me, a 5-year-old child, will there still be anyone by my side?" All questions could not be answered. Back to the present, the child had been taken back to the room and handed over to the wet nurse, and had already fallen asleep soundly. Outside the door, Muriel sincerely thanked the two of them. "Thank you for your help. We were able to find the child quickly thanks to you." As she said this, she leaned towards Pierre and smiled brightly. "By the way, Sir Pierre, what brings you to Neustria? Are Alec and Gaston doing well?" He heard the question and did not answer immediately but pointed to his face and asked in surprise, "How do you know my name?" Muriel also asked back in surprise, "Oh my, do not you remember my name?" She frowned. "It was probably last year. You brought Alec and Gaston to our mansion, remember?" According to her words, the image of him at that time with the two children also appeared as a reminder. At that time, she had happily run out to greet them, but now when she pointed at herself to remind him, he was still at a loss and did not recognize her. Pierre raised his hand to cover his face and stuttered embarrassedly, "Oh, miss." Before he could finish speaking, a voice rang out from afar, "Muriel." She turned her head towards the voice. At this moment, under the light, all her advantages were clear, making her even more radiant. Her eyes lit up when she saw the person coming. Muriel happily cheered, "Alec." Hearing such a lovely call, Alec's face flushed in an instant. Muriel did not care about the two anymore and turned to happily blame lightly, "Alec, you are with him, you should have told me." Pierre immediately retorted, "No. I do not even know who you are, until now." At this time, he remembered and said to Cyril, "How could I forget that face, that red hair, the eldest daughter of the d'Abbeville family, childhood friends of Alec and Gaston." He looked up at them in surprise, secretly asking in his head, "d'Abbeville?" Before his eyes was the scene of the two happily greeting each other, smiling and talking non-stop, brightening up a corner. In a flash, Cyril slipped into his thoughts again, "Count d'Abbeville, I remember. The person King Audelier mentioned. In the past, they were the leading family supporting the royal family. When I ascended the throne, all members of the d'Abbeville family were expelled from the country. After that, royal power weakened, and the power of the nobility revolving around Count Corsica gradually grew." Cyril looked at the person he liked and continued to sink into his thoughts, "Alexandra, I never thought she would have a relationship with the d'Abbeville family. I thought I was the only one who lost loved ones. Lady Evangeline, Sir Robert's old friend, the eldest daughter of the d'Abbeville family, childhood friends of Alexandra and Gaston, her foster brother. People related to Arnaud are gradually disappearing from Alexandra's life. I had forgotten. The reason I am here now is not because of my past." Thinking this, Cyril unconsciously frowned tightly, causing the two girls to look at him with some worry, but he did not see them and was still thinking about the reason he was here, but it is for Alexander's future. Seeing that his face was not right, Alec immediately went over and cared, "Cyril, are you okay now?" He was still absent-minded, immersed in the memories and thoughts of reality intertwined, so he did not notice Alec anxiously waving her hand in front of him. Suddenly, a large hand appeared and placed it on his forehead, causing him to wake up as if from a dream, his face still showing bewilderment. Without waiting for Cyril to speak, Pierre spoke. He had to run back and forth for a few things, so he is not trembling as much as before. He looked up and looked at the person behind him and said softly, "I understand." Hearing that, Alec's outstretched hand also retracted. She also sighed softly, "Oh, Miss Arnaud." Behind her, Muriel glanced, as if sensing the unusualness in Alec's actions, but she did not rush to speak. Instead, she quietly observed Cyril's expression as well. On his face at this moment was an indescribable embarrassment. Suddenly, her eyes stopped on the necklace he was wearing. As if realizing something, the expression on her face changed in an instant. Returning to the conversation between Alec and Lady Eva earlier, when she was about to leave, she suddenly turned and asked, "Ah, by the way, Princess, who is the Castellan boy who came with you?" Alec remembered and replied, "Are you talking about Cyril who came along? He was found in the Arnaud territory and does not remember anything except his name, so we do not know his family, but we suspect he may come from a wealthy family." Hearing that, Lady Eva was a little absent-minded, thinking about something. The images of the three appeared incongruously, each carrying their own story. But the one who left the deepest impression was probably the blonde teenager, because for some reason, when she saw her, his face was stunned as if he had met an acquaintance he never thought he would see again. She sat quietly by the window, her eyes far away, wondering, amnesia, but that expression. "He must have been surprised to see me." Then she blurted out, "A boy of unknown identity, found with amnesia, Cyril." Moving to a room in the mansion, a closed-door meeting was taking place between three people. Alec crossed her arms and leaned against the door and said, "So instead of forcing a meeting with the Marquis of Neustria now, Lady Eva herself said that she would try to find a way and asked us to wait. Because this is not Arnaud, we have no choice but to act passively." As she said this, she helplessly rubbed her head. She rubbed her reddening eyes, a thin layer of water rising in the corners of her eyes, her lips pursed, suppressing her emotions. Alec could not hold on any longer. She slumped down and hugged her knees, her voice trembling, until when she remembered the image of her brother turning his back to her, and her voice became even more shaky. "How long do we have to wait, brother? While we are stuck here like this, Gaston is probably caught up in something terrible." Seeing her like this, Pierre gently moved closer and sat down in front of her. He reached out and patted Alec's back lightly, who was sobbing. Perhaps because she felt a little warmth, she cried and said, "The truth is, it is so uncomfortable that I can't do anything now." Cyril looked at her like that and was quite confused. He also stood up and wanted to come forward to comfort her. His face showed even more sympathy for her in her current situation, but his hands did not dare to reach out to her. On the opposite side, a strong hand reached out and stopped what he wanted to do. It was Pierre. He stopped Cyril from getting closer for some reason. Suddenly, someone knocked on the door, breaking the sad atmosphere that was taking place. Alec turned her head, wiped away her tears, and looked at the door in wonder, who could be coming here at this hour? A moment later, it was not clear who had come, but Alec just pointed at herself and shouted in surprise, change rooms later. Blanche stood in front of the door and replied calmly, that is a matter of course, is not it? She said a little impatiently, it is absurd for Princess Arno to be in a cramped room with her bodyguard. Lady Eva said that if possible, you should share a room with Miss Daver. If that is your wish. Alec clasped her hands and stammered, yes, then please arrange it that way. After finishing, she turned back and smiled, saying goodbye to the two, I am leaving now, see you tomorrow. At this time, her mood had probably eased up a bit. Turning towards the door, Alec did not forget to turn back and reach out to him, good night, Cyril. After saying that, she gently followed Blanche towards the room that had been arranged. After watching her leave and disappear into the distance, Pierre put his hand on his head and stroked it. Cyril looked up at him like a big brother comforting him, don't feel sad about what happened. She probably just wanted to comfort you, but those are just feelings of admiration. I do not need to tell you, I think you know very well who will suffer if you let those feelings grow. An encouragement was also a reminder that he should not sink deep into this feeling. Cyril did not answer, he just lowered his head, his eyes glancing at Pierre and slowly moving in another direction. His face was still flushed, but sadness had naturally returned to his face. More than anyone, he clearly understood that she did not belong to him. Remembering the image of her laughing happily next to another boy, he secretly reminded himself, the pain comes from overflowing admiration. I am very aware of that, Sir Pierre. Moving to the room that Alec was moved to, she shared it with the red-haired young lady. The two of them did not seem to be able to sleep either. Alec seemed to be agonizing over something. She crossed her arms in front of her chest, frowned, and looked in one direction thoughtfully. Muriel lay on her side, resting her hand, and casually asked, what is bothering you so much, Alec? I am here right next to you. Hearing that, she clasped her hands and shyly turned to look at her friend's expectant eyes. Her voice was certain, of course, meeting Muriel like this and sharing a room is really great. I am very happy, okay, I am really happy. Muriel was coaxed by her and smiled so much that her eyes were squinted shut. Alec abruptly changed the subject and asked curiously, but why are you in the Neustria territory, Muriel? Her friend replied concisely without hesitation, I am following Lady Eva. At this time, the image of her in her head had become different. She secretly thought, a person you can follow everywhere, a good person. Muriel did not know what she was thinking but still happily added, she is a person you can learn a lot from. She has a lot of information about Aragon and the Papal See. My mother said that wherever Lady Eva goes, I should follow and learn from her. It would be better if Gaston was here too. The three of us always stay up talking all night and everything with the nanny too. She naively talked about the past in a sparkling way. Muriel changed the subject again, how is Gaston doing these days? In the last letter, he said he was going to the Corsica territory. Yvette must be grown up too. I miss everyone. She smiled innocently and talked without seeing Alec who was frozen and sitting there blankly. She quietly took a breath, her face and eyes showing a sadness that could not be expressed in words. Before the joy of meeting again and the sparkling eyes of her friend made her hesitate in her heart, should I tell Muriel about Gaston? Alec also remembered the days when she was little and became even more confused, Gaston may be involved in something terrible, but I can't do anything at all. If I tell him. While she was still hesitating, Muriel moved closer as if pressing her for an answer, but by the way, what is with that guy? That guy, is he wearing your necklace? Alec was cornered by her question, causing her cheeks to turn red and her eyes to widen in surprise. Remembering that, Muriel's eyes flickered, and her expression changed slightly. Among a crowd of friends, she saw a familiar object of her friend on someone else, and it was a strange boy. Unmistakable, remembering this, she unconsciously raised her voice, the black pearl that my mother gave to the princess when you were born, the necklace is made from it, right? As if hitting the nail on the head, Alec straightened up and said loudly, that is right, Muriel, you also think it looks like my necklace, right? This is what happened. Then the two, as if sitting on the same horse, were traveling on a road paved with explanations of what had happened from Alec's point of view. A moment later, Muriel sighed as if feeling emotional, so Cyril saved Vincent and also saved you when you two fell down the well, that is great, she also unhesitatingly affirmed, that is right. You know, on the way here, I had to share a horse with Cyril. Alec was somewhat embarrassed to mention this. Remembering the time the two rode together, she blamed herself again, I was too focused on having to get to Neustria quickly, and did not think anything when I let him ride behind me. Thinking about the moment Alec took Cyril's hand and put it around her waist, what did she and he think at that time? She was carefree, but he was embarrassed to the point of blushing. Thinking about it now, she said, until then, I just thought he was like my younger brother. Like Gaston, so I did not think about it. He also obediently put his arms around her waist throughout the journey, sometimes making her a little uncomfortable. Then, at a section of the river, her expression changed. Remembering and telling the story, but when we had to cross the river, Cyril noticed that I was afraid of water. And he did not hesitate to jump into the water and lead the horse across. It felt very strange. Speaking of this, remembering that image seemed to make her heart flutter. Alex suddenly lowered her head, her eyes drooping slightly, her voice a little sad. Cyril is someone I have to take care of, like a younger brother. Do I, as I am now? Seeing too helpless and stupid in his eyes, I do not like that feeling. Realizing the mood of her friend, Muriel reassured, even if Gaston was there, he would also happily jump into the water for you. Do you think you also would not like Gaston to see that side of you? Alec flinched when she heard the question, hesitating. That is. Muriel did not wait and smiled, continuing her words, so you just do not want Cyril to see you like that, right? If you really see him as a younger brother like Gaston, you should feel the same way. Is Cyril really just a younger brother to you? A casual question hit the heart of the story. Alec opened her eyes wide. Time around her seemed to stop. Had she never thought about this question before? Immediately, the image of a handsome blonde-haired, blue-eyed teenager with tan skin and a smile appeared in her head. The gentle smile took her hand and reassured all her worries. Unhesitatingly facing her fears together. In that moment, in her eyes, she probably no longer saw him as just a younger brother anymore. The image of Cyril strongly leading the horse and walking through the water with her was as if carved into her mind. Alec's hand squeezed the bedspread below. She must have thought of the answer. Her face flushed red to her ears, and she said hesitantly, "It is different." She propped her chin up to relieve her blushing face. "What should I do, Muriel? I think I like Cyril." To recap, 3 people had traveled a long way from Arno to Neustria so that Alexandra could be knighted. Meanwhile, they learned that her brother Gaston may be involved in a human trafficking ring. Alexandra's heart became anxious. But the important Marquis of Neustria was absent. And so, we are stuck in Neustria. All 3 of us are helpless in the face of the current situation. In Cyril's mind, when the journey began, he secretly thought that his wish would be quickly fulfilled. Alexandra, she will easily achieve merit and receive the title without any difficulties. And be able to return to Arno immediately. He unconsciously fell into thought again. But, Lady Eva's words, Princess Arno, it would be best if you stopped disguising yourself as a man inside the city walls, completely reversed everything. Alexandra could only unconsciously reply, yes, following her arrangement. She slowly explained, the scene of a disguised lady in Muriel's room does not look good in other people's eyes. I will give you one of my dresses from when I was little. Then, Lady Eva looked up at Alec and smiled, you understand what I mean, right? The 2 of them looked at each other, seemingly understanding the meaning. Suddenly, she spoke, I think I understand why Lady Eva is Sir Robert's friend. Lady Eva is very much like a teacher. I can feel an undeniable authority. Saying this, Alec's expression darkened slightly. Switching to another corner of the mansion, 3 people were sitting with their backs to each other. Pierre said, I heard that she came here after becoming a private tutor for Prince Cyril in the capital. Being a tutor for the royal family must have given her a special aura. Alec did not quite believe it. Where did you hear that? He replied concisely, I asked the people working here. While the 2 were talking, one person was trembling slightly with worry. It was Cyril. He did not participate in their story but just quietly thought, I do not think that has anything to do with the royal family. Alec was still continuing. Your communication skills are admirable. How can you gather information in a strange place that you only arrived at yesterday? Without waiting for Pierre to answer, she turned and called, that is right, Cyril. Hearing his name, he smiled slightly and looked at Alec, but in her eyes, he seemed to be shining. Causing her cheeks to turn red, they looked at each other shyly, not knowing what to say. Alec unconsciously remembered last night's conversation. What should I do, Muriel? I think I like Cyril. This is a big problem. After talking to Muriel last night, her face unconsciously turned red when she thought about this. In her eyes, Cyril looked so cute, but in reality, he was still looking at Alec without understanding. Under the bewildered gaze of the remaining 2, Alec clenched her fists, her face red, and stood up abruptly. Without turning her head, she quickly sneaked away, leaving only the words echoing, well then, I will do as Lady Eva said and go change. After walking a distance, Alec muttered to herself again, maybe it is just my feelings, but he seems uncomfortable. And me, who wants to become his bodyguard, I feel like a broken compass. Under the cold, round moon, the ancient castle stood tall beside the still water. The silent stone towers seemed to be guarding countless secrets of the night. Inside the grand hall, long wooden tables were neatly arranged under the warm, golden candlelight. Murmuring conversations filled the air, and a peaceful meal was quietly taking place. Cyril quietly ate his meal, his movements slow, as if he was not yet accustomed to the atmosphere here. Beside him, Pierre calmly cut his meat, his composure concealing all thoughts in his eyes. He suddenly stopped his movements and looked up at the person who had come to stand in front of him. A voice rang out, "Is your body all right now? You are quite skilled in using a knife and fork, it seems that you are well educated." The owner of that greeting was none other than Lady Eva. After saying that, she stepped past Cyril, her face calm, not needing an answer from him. His hand holding the fork paused slightly, his eyes glanced in her direction. In his head, he unconsciously commented that education is from you, and it was extremely strict. After eating for a while, Pierre turned to wipe the corner of his mouth and wondered, why is the young lady taking so long? Lady Eva sat upright in her chair, her yellow eyes soft but stern, looking at the little girl beside her who lowered her head, eating while looking flustered under that gaze. Christine attentively bit into the bread, her cheeks puffed out as she chewed quickly. The simple meal suddenly became lively because of her innocent and carefree appearance. She leaned over and reminded, her voice low and gentle, "Christine, eat slowly, you will choke." The little girl froze, her hand covering her mouth slightly, as if she had just realized she was too hasty. She instinctively pushed away Lady Eva's hand holding a napkin that was about to wipe her mouth. Christine jumped up, her face flushed, her voice angry, "Don't act like my mother." The immature but emotional resistance rang out in the middle of the hall. The little girl turned and ran away from the table, the chair hitting the floor and creating a jarring noise. She was stunned, her eyes showing a brief moment of bewilderment as she watched the little girl's back. Cyril sat motionless, his teeth clenching the fork, releasing a cold air, not noticing Pierre's eyes lighting up. In his head, he kept questioning, reacting like that to someone like Lady Eva. Of course, she never taught me gently. Pierre did not pay attention to Cyril but stood up, his eyes still not leaving a certain place, causing him to look up in surprise. He still did not understand what was going on, he just raised his eyes and looked with a full of questions, "Sir Pierre." Suddenly, his eyes lit up, his cheeks flushed, his face showing an indescribable fascination. It turned out that the person who appeared in the direction Pierre was going was Alec. The blue dress even more emphasized her pure and bright beauty. Her eyes seemed to meet Cyril's gaze, she smiled slightly, perhaps that was why it made him blush and be stunned. At this moment, Pierre appeared, bowing to Alec. He looked up and smiled, "Lady, allow me to escort you." In the back in the distance, Cyril was still dazed, secretly thinking, "It reminds me of the old days." Alec gracefully placed her hand on Pierre's hand. He supported her in a professional manner. This scene made him unconsciously think, it feels so close, but completely out of reach. As if space had been divided, on the opposite side, she had sat down next to Lady Eva. On the other side of her was Muriel who was happily teasing Pierre, "Are you pulling out a chair for me too? Thank you." Cyril was as if he was sinking into the darkness in contrast to the rest of the party in the hall, pondering, although this time there is no age gap. The distance between us feels like it has never disappeared. Alec flushed slightly as she looked for where he was sitting. She turned to whisper, "Muriel, is it just me, or can't I see Cyril?" Her friend raised her hand to cover her mouth and replied, He is over there, on the right, looking at you intently." But when Alec looked over, the person who had been standing there looking at her was no longer there. Muriel wondered, was he just there? Her eyes widened as she looked over, now she felt a little disappointed. Muriel could not help but feel annoyed, where did he go? The scenery outside the window was still eerily quiet. Cyril walked down the hallway with the moonlight shining through each window. He seemed to be running away and muttering to himself, "I can't look Alexandra in the face right now. If I sit there any longer, my painful thoughts will show on my face." The more he thought, the faster his steps became. Cyril stood silently under the cold blue light of the night, his blue eyes wide, his trembling gaze on his young face etched with an emotion that had not yet been named but had quietly spread in his heart. He questioned himself, "During the time I was sitting at the table, I was jealous of a child's anger, a child younger than me, who also lost his parents. I am jealous of Sir Pierre, who held Alexandra's hand so naturally. This is a good opportunity, with a proper first meal in a while and meeting a friend, but seeing my face in that state at that moment, Alexandra must have been very worried about me. Even though I can't help her now, I can't ruin Alexandra's mood. Thinking this, Cyril leaned back, closed his eyes, and sighed. Suddenly, he opened his eyes wide in surprise as if realizing something was wrong. He looked around with some trepidation but did not speak, just silently screamed in his heart, someone, singing a lullaby in an empty church in the middle of the night. Is not that lying? Even a hymn is very scary to hear. But then Cyril froze. His eyes must have seen it, that was the daughter of the Marquis of Neustria. The girl was holding a lamp and slowly walking forward, her face also showing a little fear.